the chance to get into the chat and make sure everything is working.
Tristan, you need like a splash page that you can put up over your face for like MA Twin City board meeting starting soon.
Oh, hey, you're not blue anymore.
Let's do this. Nope.
That can be a lot of things.
Oh
Oh
my.
God. The image. Just do this and.
That was Kevin rolling for changes.
I'm gonna miss you, Kevin.
I'll be around. I'll just be on the other side of the YouTube fence.
I know.
Yeah,
You're like half a mile from my house. I could come sit on your deck.
You could.
Nice.
I'm gonna. I have cider ready to drink and an IPA ready in 2 weeks.
I only have seltzer.
Social
Seltzer.
distancing at its best. We're just going to come over to people's houses and sit on their lawn and wave to them.
I'm pretty convinced that the state of Minnesota is going to have to pay for my rehab after I cannot be quarantined anymore.
Right?
I mean, you work from home usually. Is it much of a difference?
It is just on the weekends. During the week doesn't bother me, although it's been a challenge with Eric also at home. But at least we're on 2 different floors.
Can't you like make a tent out in the backyard? You can just exile him out there during the day.
Well, no, he needs more of a connection than I do.
He can run a wire. He knows how.
I could sit outside on the laptop, which
She is more likely
Oh.
to want to sit outside and sunbathe while working.
So-
That's true.
So here who wants to hear
I have a nice deep tan already.
who wants to hear Tristan's daily work dose of stupid?
Oh, I do.
So
Yes, please.
had a coworker working with me today, and I was installing a camera in an elevator. The coworker, so this apparently the people running the elevator did not put a Cat5 data cable in the elevator. So unfortunately,
Don't have to unless they ask for it.
we did actually, because there in our building plans we had put that we were putting a camera in there, so we needed a Cat5 for things. But anyways, they didn't put a data cable, but they did put power. So we got it in, we got it powered. But the fun part is the guy I was working with, because he didn't have the wiring done in there or connected yet. Or his computer connected to the Wi-Fi, he decided to run a Cat5 cable from the camera to the office and connect to the computer in the office with a 100-foot cable. I walked out of the bathroom 50 feet down the hall in time to see the elevator door closing.
Right.
I got over there, got my snips, and cut the cord while it was about 3 feet off the floor going up.
What building were you at?
This was up in St. Cloud.
Yeah, we do St. Cloud too.
It was it's Crestview.
Sounds vaguely familiar.
So, like I said, it's yeah. So I can honestly say I have never seen that actually happen in life, where like the dog or the the thing happens like that. It's like what? That's
Videos.
that's not a real thing.
Yes, it is.
It's not supposed to be.
It does happen.
It's not.
I can just see his report. Well, the video was working fine until the elevator started moving, then all of a sudden it just cut out on me.
Right? Oh god. Okay, so ABC, go to videos. Live now. 4 people watching.
Woohoo!
Now, let me get a show of hands who is but which board member is on the stream.
I'm trying to.
Wait, what?
Oh, I just pulled up the YouTube.
I'm pulling it up now.
Yeah,
It's a much shorter leg, which is nice.
Yeah, I got it down to about 8 seconds. I was just
Yep.
wondering. I can hear myself. I can hear everybody else, so we're good there. I just like to monitor the quantity of people watching, and I saw 4.
Why don't I
and,
see it on our page?
It's there. I just clicked on it to open it.
That's what I'm trying to do as well. I'm not It's not refreshing to show
I
it.
see the April board meeting, but I don't see any videos for May 1.
Oh, if you just go to like Facebook, I would click
Oh.
on the link through there.
Yeah, I
it's
just posted
probably
the link
hard to
there as
find
well.
a live stream
I don't know.
on
I
a
just
page.
went to the videos section, and it was right there, the
Yeah,
first
but
one.
it's not there.
Oh,
Whatever.
derp! I know what the problem is.
I can't get to it.
Nope, hold
when I
on.
click on the Facebook.
Nope, I know exactly what the problem is. Tristan has it unlisted. There, it's public again. Now you can go find it.
That's probably helpful.
Hey, look, I see a live now meeting.
Oh, yeah, that was quick. I just heard him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I don't want to be center square though. Can you shuffle me?
I don't know, can I?
This isn't celebrity. This
Nope.
isn't celebrity.
Be cool if it just like
Squares.
randomly shifted throughout the meeting.
It
That'd
shows
be
different
fun.
people in different positions on every screen.
Yeah. You
Brady
can
Bunch.
select it.
And a tiny little Tristan in the corner.
So what I'm gonna do is full screen that. Whoa, that's not.
Troy, you're so quiet.
I don't know what to say.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were muted.
He's also eating, looks like, too, so.
Looks like he's spitting. Are you chewing tobacco?
No, sunflower seeds, but
Okay.
no,
Ugh.
Just like
Uh,
apples, swallow.
not dip.
Did we ever find a way to take attendance at these meetings now that they're technically they technically now count for votes as per our bylaws?
Right? I
So
probably need to figure that out.
that
Christine, let's see
the
how many of us are all on, so she can just tally us all in.
yeah
Yeah.
board
Well,
Yeah,
the
but it's our-
board
it's
is
our
easy. It's
YouTube
the
people.
audience
Yep,
that's
that's
less
actu-
easy.
That was actually gonna be my thing. Is I was just gonna post in
10
the,
watching now, but I don't know how to see who.
You can't. I was
Maybe they have to say their name in the chat or something.
Yeah, I don't even see a list of people.
No, we're not going to avoid us having to have people disclose their real names in a random internet chat. I was just going to ask them to email Christina if they would like to be counted in attendance to the meeting, because now as these meetings do now count for voting rights. Which
Okay, that makes
we should
sense.
definitely make sure there's a time frame
but
on that.
but someone should put
like
it
during the meeting
the
or
chat.
something.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that
So
in
they see
just a minute.
Yeah.
But as soon as we were done
Perfect.
talking,
Yep.
I was going to say, Kim, as vice president, would you like to call this meeting to order since it should have started 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, I'm just listening to you guys talk. It's fine. All right, so let's get going. It is officially 6:34 according to Apple. So I have a copy of Christina's agenda. Thank you very much. First, let's just say welcome to Ashley and John to your first official board meeting. Hopefully you enjoy your time with us.
I'm hoping so.
If not, he's
And
got
if-
the bar behind him.
Yeah, that's true.
True.
If not,
I
it's
do.
only a 2-year stint.
It's not that. So the first thing is actually is not open session, but we're gonna start with the open session. Is there anybody on the chat? I don't have that open. So I don't know if there's anybody that can they like chat a question, or I'm not really sure how it's gonna work.
So it looks like somebody does have a question for us. I'm not sure who. I got a username, but I'm not sure who the person is. But go ahead and ask your question. I think it's Darius Dracos is the person. Oh, okay. Nope, they're here. No question. They were just confirming they're here.
Oh, okay. Do any board members have anything they want to discuss in open session?
So there was one thing that was it's been brought up to me, and in the hubbub of the voting and everything else, it slipped my mind until this afternoon. A couple of people in the voting brought up that nobody was. It's really not advertised anywhere that when you are voting for treasurer, you are also voting for vice president.
I
It's listed in our bylaws.
technically, they're, well, I mean, I guess they kind of are, but
They're in our bylaws, but
vice president only exists in the absence of a president.
correct. But it's still that it's yeah. Well, it's in our bylaws. I mean, the average person, unless they're super interested, is not looking at our bylaws when they're looking at who or what they're voting for. That's also why we were looking at getting those job descriptions for the positions. So the question was because a few people were upset, to put a short on it, that they didn't know that when they were voting and didn't know that till after. So
I should have voted for somebody else.
Oh no, it was just the they didn't know that, yeah, they're voting for treasurer, but in our ballots it's not indicated that that is also what will or maybe the acting vice president.
We can make an action item for in 2 years, just to try to remember to put /VP.
Yeah, because that was going to be my question.
Or clean up the language in your bylaws, because as the bylaws do read, the VP only exists in the absence of a president. So you're not necessarily, it's not giving them necessarily presidential power. It honestly reads that they only are vice president in meetings. And so I would argue that it's pretty much invalid to use that title any other time outside of a meeting.
Yeah, and you would very rarely ever hear me say that. I don't sign as a VP or anything. I always sign as a treasurer.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I've noticed that.
It's only in regards to meetings, and quite honestly, you probably just need to figure out or reevaluate a better way to educate the general membership on the bylaws and how they read, because some of them can be a little goofy, especially if you're not used to reading bylaws or know how they normally work.
The basics of it too is that it's an executive position, so it falls to that as
Vice
default.
president isn't, just the treasurer is.
Yeah.
If anything, you could
treasurer
just change it and completely remove that title and say they are chairing a meeting in the absence of a president at the attendance, because the bylaws rely on either the president or the treasurer to always be there.
Yeah.
That would be a better option.
Yeah, because the other thing, I mean, really the only other thing at that point would be to just split the two and have both a vice president, a treasurer, and a president. If we're not gonna just reword it, and then that's
You'd also have to add a member or drop a member, so we wouldn't have a
Or change one of the
mutual member.
at-larges.
yeah, either change one of the at-larges to be a that, or if we just create another position, we would either have to create two positions, still keep an odd number of board members, or
I just don't
one
see
of
the purpose
three
of
points would have to lose
needing-
voting rights.
Yeah, I just don't see the purpose of needing a VP position since they only have the power to preside over meetings.
Right. It's not like they do anything whatsoever. I would agree that you really, I mean, I
If
don't.
anything, it's just remove the title and just make sure that the treasurer info is updated that they chair a meeting if a president is unable to attend. And then you erase all of it's a simple answer, and then you don't have to add or remove members, because you need a VP.
In our bylaws, the only time that, off the top of my head, I'd have to go reread them to be 100%, but 95% sure the only time that VP is mentioned is in the section that it states that the treasurer is acting as the vice president in the absence of the president.
Right,
I'm
so then
pretty
you
sure
just
you're
say the
right.
treasurer acts as the chairman for the meeting, or as the chair for the meeting. And then you get rid of that language, and then you don't have that confusion anymore.
I think that perhaps that it was stated that way beyond the fact of 99% of the time, yes, you're right. It's just who's going to chair the meeting at the time. It's more of a fail safe in case, sorry, one of my favorite phrases, hit by a bus, and it takes us a couple months to get a new president.
Well, how it's worded is only for meetings. It doesn't cover the hit by the bus. You don't really have anything in your
Yeah.
bylaws to cover a hit by a bus situation.
So that's
Except maybe just by the term vice president, just in what it implies.
Just by what
Right.
it implies, but then you start getting in a mess with how it's written in your bylaws. So
True.
eventually that's going to start falling down into a bylaw change. So in the case that your president was hit by a bus, then you would have no president. You could maybe, and I'd have to look it up, you could maybe have an interim as you wait for a special election, because I believe that's what your bylaws say.
No.
No, we have to have a special election. We
Yeah.
can't appoint an interim.
Yep. The
Okay. So then you just act without a president until your special election.
Correct. Yeah. They do specifically state that the executive officials do require a special election. However, if any of the members at large were to vacate a seat, the board then gives that position.
appoint.
Yeah. Thank you. The board appoints a person, and then at the next meeting within that 30-day point, a voting population gives a yes/no vote.
Okay. So, I guess I'm all for just removing the wording.
Okay.
Which would still be a bylaws change.
Yep.
Yeah, it would
So we-
still be a bylaw
It's a
change.
simplified.
So we
but
need
still.
somebody to suggest it, and that will basically force the board to vote on it within a couple months, and that will force like a 2-month mandatory vote in session of main attendance. But we can
Which
totally do it.
So, okay, I would be happy to propose a vote that we remove, or that we rephrase the section of the bylaws to, where'd it go? I had the page.
That's like right in the beginning.
Yep. Oh no, I ended up going to a different page. Treasurer shall also serve as vice president in the event that the president is unable to attend meetings and will report to the board of directors on a monthly basis. To change that statement to the treasurer shall also serve as chair to conduct the meetings in the absence of the president.
Christina, did you catch that all?
Almost. 1 second. Okay. So we are looking at doing a bylaw change to change the wording to
And
the
then-
treasurer.
Go ahead.
The treasurer will also serve as chair to conduct the meetings in the absence of the president.
Yep, and then it'll continue with the comma, and we'll report to the board of directors on a monthly basis.
And Christina, you'll find that in Article 3,
Page.
Section B, Item 2. It should be like the last paragraph under treasurer.
The very last sentence.
Okay.
Is there somebody that wants to second that proposal?
I will second that.
you can't.
Quick one thing, as a note, the newly elected officials do not.
Position.
Yeah, you guys don't have voting till next month.
I forgot about that.
That's all right, John. You get one strike.
Darn it.
He's so eager.
Hey, I'm the good kid.
Well, I don't know about that.
Somebody
now.
else willing?
Darius Dracos has a question about voting. What is your question? In the chat.
Oh, did we actually vote?
Yeah, but did we get
Nope.
a second?
No, nobody has yet to second the vote. So
There, I'll second.
Jay has seconded.
All right.
So voting?
Reading all
After.
in favor?
Bye.
Wave.
Says
I think it's unanimous, Christina.
Okay, good. It's very hard to tell because like the screen keeps changing. So
Just remember, we now have an official clock start
Christina.
of a few
Mhm.
weeks. We
At
have to mail
the-
this out in a couple days.
Yep, at the top right of your screen, there's an icon. You can click that to make it, because what it's set to is whoever's speaking gets displayed on your screen big. At the top right, you can select
Thank
an
you.
icon to make it what I got on the screen.
Got it.
Lori.
But Darius Dracos, you said you have a question about the voting rights. What was your question? If you don't want to ask it here, I know there's a little bit of a lag, but if you
It's
don't want to
there.
ask it here, you can. You
Out
can
of the
go ahead
200
and
plus
email
staff,
us.
I was under the understanding that only a fraction of that number actually had the right to
Oh.
vote.
Yes.
Yes.
You are correct. And it's so who can vote is not just AT staff; it is AT members. While AT staff are ATC members, anyone and everyone who attends Anime Detour is members. As right now, that percentage is 60%. It's just over half of the meetings of a single coordinator. So that would be at this point, since we have not changed the positions, that would be clubs, charities, social outreach services, and Anime Detour, and now as of this week, ATC board meetings. So all you have to do is attend just over half of the board of the meetings of any one of those coordinators to get your voting rights.
And
And then
it's
the number
important.
of meetings for coordinators is 4, which means you would need to attend 3 meetings in a calendar year in order to vote for a 501c3 board of directors position. And that is not something that I think we should decrease.
I will state out that the board itself, the ATC monthly board meetings, and Anime Detour are the only two sets of meetings that have more than about, I think, 4 or 5 a year.
SOS does.
I thought there was only
Like
about
6.
Well, they have
I think
six.
she had 6. yeah.
They meet the minimum requirement. So then the other thing you would note really quick is that you have to sign in. That was a question we got a lot while we
Yeah.
were dealing with this, is people weren't signing in themselves into the sheets.
Yep.
And so we didn't ever have a record of them attending the meetings.
So Darius, as to your question of what qualifies as a coordinators meeting, it's any one of those coordinators hosts a meeting. They are supposed to hold, I believe, it's just that for a year. They contact their staff, whatever may be below them, to let them know that they're going to be holding a meeting, whatever they may be, whether it's a planning meeting, just a quarterly check-in kind of thing. Really just any meeting called to order by that coordinator in whatever.
I do think that as it pertains to voting rights, that these are meetings much like SOS does, Detour does, and board meeting does, is that the coordinator should be reporting those meetings to the board ahead of time. They should be on the ATC calendar, and their attendance when taken should be turned in rather immediately after the meeting, so that we're not adjusting June 2019's attendance in May of 2020.
That is a good point.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And then one thing, just for transparency, like, yes, we, out of the 200 members, we had 30 people that had the right to vote based off of attendance. But to be fair, last year it was only 50. So it was lower, but it wasn't significantly lower.
Yeah, the number of people, because it's in the past, the number of people who are voting, it's really the people you regularly see at the staff meetings. Because like I said, if you have paid your ATC membership dues, which is anyone that attends the convention. So last year, we had 6,300 ATC members, of which, as Christina just said, about 50 people attended enough of those meetings to gain voting rights. This year, out of the 6,300 that had attended last year's convention, that was less than 30. So it's the reality of getting those voting rights is not a complex thing to get done. It's just the number of people who do usually get those voting rights is comparatively very small to what we have, or the pool we have that has that option to do that.
Yeah, and it seems to be hyper focused on as we get closer to an election versus the preceding 11 months. You have to attend that percentage of meetings and sign in. And that grants you the ability to vote for, who helps run the organization. And I don't think that that's terribly out of line.
So did
Does that help it?
Question, Tristan?
That is an answer and a discussion about the question.
Okay.
I don't. My screen may be a little bit lagging. They have not responded yet.
Does that answer the question well enough for you, Darius? Sorry, I say that as I'm looking at YouTube, not at the camera.
And just as an additional point, Enemy Detour admin team sent out an email regarding voting rights. And if you had any questions, to check with the admin team, and exactly 0 people did. It wasn't until it was announced who did or did not have voting rights that we started receiving those emails. So again, an effort was made to accept any questions or concerns, and no inquiries were made.
I will assume that we answered his question then, and he didn't have any follow-up. Were there any other questions? Or did any other board members have something for open? We have a few minutes left before 7 yet. Hey there.
I had something for open.
Okay.
And it's not something that we'll be able to, resolve this evening, but it might be something that we want to, as a board, try and take a look at in a few different pieces, such as, and I know getting the position descriptions for the board member positions will help, as it seems there's, I don't think we're as immersive with our membership about what it is that the board does, whether it be a member at large position, how many branches we have, that those branches are separate. So I think we might, this cycle, if we can, want to turn some attention to a re-education of our membership about the difference between any of the branches and ATC, and that those branches are equally important, and they also need staff and those sorts of things, as well as a position description for what it means to run for a board member at large. Not only what you will be doing at the board level, but something that we've only talked about very briefly, but what your legal responsibilities are in those positions, that you have
Your fiduciary duties.
The duty of care, duty of obedience, duty of loyalty. You are legally required to fulfill those. So it takes on a little bit more of a status. And I guess the one requirement that we have right now for people to be on our board of directors is to be a member in good standing and submit any sort of statement, 5 pages, 1 paragraph, 3 sentences. And I think the weight of that position, I think, maybe calls for a few more requirements.
I actually just recently found that and sent it over to John, and was thinking that we should send that out to anybody who applies to it in the future, and perhaps even put it out onto the board member website, the guidelines we're following, kind of thing.
I know. I actually have
looked at it.
That's from our math training, right?
Mine.
No, there's actually on the Attorney General website as well.
Have mine right here.
What is required?
5 feet from my chair at all times.
And for perhaps further discussion, we might want to have some sort of metric as for, what sort of information we're looking for when people submit a statement. Not necessarily a hard and fast rule, but perhaps some guidelines. A lot of other organizations also supplement that with a X number of minute oral presentation and a 30-minute questioning period. And I think when we're looking at putting people on, I think when we're looking at putting people into those positions, that I think that those are good things that we could do, that I don't think would really disqualify anybody from serving. I think would just help us get a better feel for who is running and that sort of thing in their position.
Yeah, that's I can definitely not disagree with that, because I know in the last 3 or 4 years that I've been learning what the board has does and serving on the board. I still see most of the people that I see run for board still have a massive focus on how they can influence a single branch of ATC. Which, I mean, there's five. Is it 5 or 6 coordinators now? We're shuffling things around, so I'm not sure. 4, down to 4.
Maybe it will be 5.
I think it's, yeah.
Yeah, where they're shuffling and rearranging the positions. Either way, we have all those branches, all the various coordinators, and running on the platform as a board member of how you're going to specifically influence a single one of those is a little short-sighted, in my opinion.
And perhaps a position description, one positive, additional positive is maybe we don't get as many candidates as they're not sure what the position entails. So making that position clearer to the membership could, in theory, help interest more people.
And I know I have been attempting to piece together a kind of a position description for member at large. And I was gonna reach out to Michelle this week to sit down and, if she's still up for it, iron out the details and see what that is. I know we have repeatedly asked coordinators for position descriptions. I know some of them, like social media and such, are changing frequently, so those do change. But getting those from each of you would definitely be a benefit for those times when we have to replace those coordinators.
Yeah, I mean, just as a small point, it actually takes more, and there's more involved to it to become a department head within Anime Detour branch than it does outside of the voting to become a board member. That was it. It was just something that I thought that we could probably take a look at hopefully during this cycle, and get more of that information out to the membership, so that they're aware of what it is, what we're doing, what those positions entail. Get voting rights, bylaws, just kind of all of the information.
John did say that he would continue to work on the position realignment. So
Yeah.
we will make some progress in this area also.
Okay.
That is actually one that actually reminds me of one of the other things that I had intended to bring up. Was specifically for the position of treasurer. At the moment, we have no requirements on your not you specifically, Kim, but you as a position. We have no requirements on what your abilities are as a position. Anyone can run for that position, and if they are outvoted over you, they are elected to the position. And if it's 19-year-old Joe that flips burgers at McDonald's, nothing against Joe, but if he's right out of high school and has absolutely no financial management experience, we are about to most likely run into some rough waters. So I feel that we should definitely, at least for the treasurer, look at creating a minimum sort of response of experience or ability required.
Qualifications.
Thank you. Qualifications in addition to being a board member. Or an ATC member.
I would agree with that.
So
ATC executive board member.
Thank you.
True.
Would this need to be a bylaw? This isn't in the bylaws. This could just be a
Mm.
policy.
I think it would have to be a bylaw change.
Yeah,
But
something
there's nothing in the bylaws that says what requirements you have to have.
for to serve as a board member. Yeah, qualifications for voting and to serve as a board member are in the bylaws. Those are. I really should just have this saved as a thing. Voting rights. Membership will be restricted to individuals 16 years of age or older. So it could be a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old still in high school in their sophomore year. Voting membership will be restricted to individuals 16 years of age or older who met the requirements listed in this section in the year preceding their vote for the ATC board, who live within 600 miles of the Twin Cities Metro at the
Well, that's
time of the annual meeting. Blah, blah,
Then
blah.
again, there's
That's
nothing
who can
against.
vote.
Yeah.
That's just
Oh,
about
you're right.
voting.
You're right. Never mind.
Then again, there is nothing,
Officers,
also
inauguration.
against someone that is highly intelligent. I mean, there are
Absolutely.
students right now in high school that are doing AP courses. They could run circles in math around me.
Yeah,
I mean, I hate
and like,
math. So
Heather?
Don't you guys have bond insurance for your treasurer and the president since they have signing rights? I believe there's an age limit on bond insurance.
I was just
That's a fair
thinking,
point.
if you're not 18, are you legally able to take on these duties under the
Right.
law?
No, it was pointed
At
out
least for
that
signing.
16 is for voting rights. I was reading the wrong paragraph. That is my mistake. We actually looking at the officers, just browse through it. We have no age limit specifically stated.
Correct.
Does the state of Minnesota have one?
One could assume
I would
18.
think so.
One could assume 18 being the age, the minimum age limit, due to the fact that you are, in some cases,
Adult.
doing an adult or doing interacting with some sort of a legally binding contract.
Troy, you have something to say?
Tony,
Well, yeah,
as well?
based on that, is there any reason that our the ability to vote happens at 16 versus 18? So we have minor adults.
We used to. That were on staff.
Right, but just because they're on staff doesn't mean that that might be in our best interest to have them voting for the board of directors. At 16.
I mean, I can see some give and take to that. I also know people that some people who are fresh adults into the world, just out of high school, who have been whose parents are members of staff, and they have been involved in the convention in some way or another for over
And none
a
of that
decade.
should guarantee you the ability to vote for the board of directors. I mean, I think that seems like part of some of our systemic problem is I think sometimes we undervalue or underappreciate the vastness of the board. And if someone were to ask me, just me specifically, what I think is best for Anime Detour on who should vote, it should be 18 and older, not 16 and 17. I don't think we lose anything at 16 or 17, but I think you could certainly call those votes into question if they're underage. It can theoretically taint that portion of the process and call the whole scope into question.
Okay, so
There-
not saying that you're wrong, but what are your reasons for wanting to change that age limit?
Because I don't think it ever should have been 16. I think it always should have been 18. It should have always been an adult over the age of 18, with whatever other specifications, whether it be voting rights, living within 600 miles, whatever it is, that's in the best interest. How can we have somebody legally vote for a board of directors that's 16 years old? That just doesn't make any sense. And it might eliminate a few people we know or a few people we are close to, or maybe even our own children, but that doesn't mean that that's not what's best for a professional charity. There's probably not people voting for the board of directors for Red Cross that are 16 years old. I don't know that for a fact, but I'd put a little wager on it.
Okay, that's a fair argument.
True. We do got a question in the chat from somebody. ATC is a large organization with a fairly large budget. Why don't we consider hiring an independent third-party CPA? Kim, I think you might be the most longest serving qualified person to answer that, address that issue?
I guess I probably just basically the cost of it. I mean, we did look into auditing, and I mean, at a minimum, that was $10,000 a year.
Oh,
Just the cost. I mean, we do have an independent outside accountant that does our tax forms, and so they look at everything. But
Just a side note on this particular topic. If we do decide to, at some point in the future, hire somebody to be the treasurer, whether they be a CPA or whatever qualifications they have, at that point, we would no longer be able to remove them and make it a volunteer position.
yeah.
So
that
if we
is-
do it, we would always have to have somebody that we pay. to be
Correct.
the
That
treasurer.
is actually a big federal hubbub going on with volunteer organizations. Is that any position given to a volunteer, that volunteer cannot be a replacement for a paid employee. If that happens, then there's a bunch of legal and tax ramifications in that situation. So if we ever did go to a hired CPA as an employee as an employee of the organization to do that, we legally would not have the option to ever go back. That's a one-way street.
And
Now,
just don't know that you would find somebody who maybe would want to take that on. I mean, while there's a things I do every month and maybe every other day, the bulk of the work is always done like the month before, the couple of months before, the couple of months after detour. And in the height of tax season, it might be hard pressed to find somebody who would want to take on that kind of work.
and we are talking several $1,000s undoubtedly to take it on, and
To
that
do nothing.
several $1,000s we can spend having SOS events. We can spend doing other things. If we've got a volunteer who's qualified and can do it, paying for a tax person is totally legit. But the day-to-day stuff, I think it's a way for us to focus the money elsewhere.
And I don't disagree with Michelle, but I do think again that there's a number of instances where maybe not in this particular case, where we have looked to spend that money elsewhere and not necessarily always taking care of our financial backyard. And some of those things are starting to come back on us and bite us in that we've never done them and should have for some period of time. Not saying that this is one of those cases, but it seems to be coming up a lot of times in the last year that, well, that's going to cost us. You know, while we are a 501c3, there are just a number of things that I think we at least have to look into to at least not measure whether or not it should or shouldn't cost us, but measure the cost and see if that cost is beneficial to some other parts of the organization or longevity. But I do think to agree with Kim's point, I'd just like to submit the work that Kim alone does at Detour, and a hired hand is not going to sit there. I don't know, but I would find it surprising if they were willing to sit there from Wednesday until Monday, and do the bank runs and all the things that goes into. And I'm sure I only know about like the tip of the iceberg. I think we would have a fairly difficult time finding someone to do that for any
Agreed.
cost, let alone cost effective.
Totally agree with you, Troy, on that. Totally agree.
likewise.
I see that Heather had some questions in face or YouTube, but I just wanted to point that out in case Kim hadn't. Well, Kim's not in the chat, so I don't know how you guys want to work that with.
I am not in the chat. Sorry.
I just wanted to call it to attention, since I know we're over the open period, but I took up some of that, so I feel a little bad.
Don't worry about it.
So what's the question directed to Kim?
Well, let's see. She's mentioned. She says, have people thought about Fusion? How Fusion votes? How if you do so many hours of work for the convention, whether pre-convention work like web team meetings or at convention work. And I think that to qualify to vote on the board. And I know that we had some rather lengthy discussion a few months ago that touched on that topic. But I don't think that we came to a resolution on that. It seemed like we were looking at a lot of different options, but again, I don't think that we did not move on with any changes from how things currently were, other than the bylaw proposals from last week,
which did pass, thankfully.
Right.
So now ATC membership is counted. In effect of that, are we going to never mind, I'll bring that up later. We got a discussion point on that later. Don't want to get that ball rolling right now. Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Well, Heather mentions again, and I don't know if Heather entered the meeting late, but she mentions how many people who got to vote this year was just sad. And it was about 20 down from last year. So while a decrease, not as sizable as may have been thought, but if people came to the meetings and did not sign in, which is their responsibility, then they did not get voting rights. If people didn't attend as many meetings under those previous bylaws to get voting rights, then they didn't get voting rights. And it's been made perhaps easier now with you are able to ATC board meeting attendance counts. And just to reiterate in case anybody joined late, the coordinators meetings count as long as they hold 4 meetings or more a year, and you have to reach 60% of that. So for any other coordinator, you'd have to go to 3 meetings a year, sign in, and I think that that's a pretty fair number of meetings in a calendar year to vote for your board of directors.
In all fairness, I wasn't able to vote this year because of my military duties that interfered with the board meetings, which I found out after the fact that if I would have informed somebody on the board that I wasn't able to attend because of my military duties, that could not have been held against me.
Well, that's not exactly true. I don't know who could speak for the board on that. There's nothing in our bylaws that states that, and we are not an employer.
There was some research done by someone and I'm not going to call them out on it, that did some research on my behalf for it, and that's the answer they came up with. And they said they got the answers directly from the bylaw.
Well, yeah, something just popped up on the screen. I guess they would have to specify exactly which of our bylaws state that that would be the case. It also would require some additional tracking by our admin team. And most of the things that I researched that looked at employers' rights for active duty or reservists are employers' rights, and not to dismiss them, but as we're not an employer, it's, not the same.
Yeah, with other organizations I've worked with as well that are nonprofits or not-for-profits, as they are not employees and you are not getting any fiscal benefits, military service does not generally automatically roll over unless you account for it in your bylaws. So I'm not sure where they got that information, and I'm not seeing anything on the Attorney General's page either.
Yeah, it's
but
not something that I'm familiar with either.
Yeah.
So, but
I've run into it with other organizations, but I'm not seeing anything unless you are getting fiscal benefits or you are employed by the organization.
To be very clear to any of the audience, we do not receive any fiscal benefits as board members. We get no payments, no dividends. The only money we receive from the treasurer is reimbursement for funds we spend on behalf of the organization. And that's just a direct reimbursement. We provide Kim with the receipts and such, and she will reimburse us for our expenses. Troy, that is actually one of the things that I was actually going to talk to you and not at this board meeting, because we still haven't started doing anything other than posting the staff meetings to YouTube. But I was going to start bringing up something if or when we start do live streaming the staff meetings. If that is something that we could look into, like we said here, those virtually in attendance, emailing the secretary of that meeting to be counted as in attendance at that meeting. That right there is something that could have the ability to increase attendance. I unfortunately, since I do not attend staff meetings for other coordinators, I can't really attest or do much to assist with that. But it could be used for them as well if they chose to.
Yeah, it's certainly something that we could look at. I think one of the things, as it's come up at like the executive level and things like that in previous years, is that and I'm not advocating one way or the other, but just asking the question: is that the end of the expectation of somebody to just show up to a meeting, mark their X, and that equates to voting rights for the board of directors? Because we have people show up 30, 45 minutes late, sign in, and go get hot dogs across the street.
True.
It starts to become a little, you just start to have questions pop up, and I've not yet figured out the way to answer them, because I think it's a much broader issue than, just something that I can just sort of say yes or no.
And we actually did have a question in the chat. Hecate's daughter, that's she said, with that thought, how many people would email but only stay for a few minutes? Right now, the exact same thing could happen at a board meeting, or not a board meeting, but a staff meeting. Since it's physical attendance, it's who comes in and signs that sheet. I could drive down from St. Cloud to that staff meeting, walk in, sign, walk in at the very end of the meeting before the attendance is collected, or just walk in before the meeting as the attendance is out, sign my name, and then go down to the Mall of America for the rest of the day, and I have been counted as in attendance. So, I mean, there is nothing to stop that from happening either way.
And it does. There are people who have come in literally after the meeting has concluded, and we're kind of in the informal meetings after the meeting portion, and the attendance sheets this is not something that has happened at our last physical meeting, but the attendance sheets were are left out for the entirety of the meeting to kind of to give everybody an opportunity to sign in. But yeah, some people have shown up after the meeting is over, signed in, and now that's equating to voting rights. And I guess I just think if we're going to take voting rights seriously, then it's serious. If it's not, then it's not. It kind of has to be consistent, and I think it's serious, but that's a group decision.
I honestly don't think there's just any really good way to police it. We really just have to go off of the trust system and trust people to do the right thing. I can't think of a good way to enforce attendance. So, we can track what we get and go with that.
World Boss, in regards to your statement, you said they just said they reviewed the bylaws, didn't see anything, nor are they aware of any protections offered to military in law in this regard. This is something the board should run by an attorney if questioned. That is a very good thing. I can, if nobody has any objections, I can run that question by your attorney.
And that is a good thing. And what I have found, oftentimes when we do refer something to our attorney, they do cycle back to, what do your bylaws say? So
he has been saying that to a lot of the emails.
Yeah, our bylaws also have to account to it, because we are legally responsible and legally obligated to follow those bylaws as written, and or follow the appropriate procedure to get those changed to something more preferentially worded.
So my suggestion on this specific thing would be, why don't we look at whether we want to have a stipulation in there that suggests that if you're unable to make meetings specifically because of military service, that those meetings aren't held against you as the total. Or I
Yeah,
think
we
we
would
may know what I'm talking about or how to word that better.
Yeah, no, we would definitely have to put a. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I just think that that'd be something. At least I'd be willing to sign on to that myself. I think that yeah, if somebody is a a military service member, that obviously they're doing something higher and bigger. I think that shouldn't be held against them if they're unable to attend because of service. Whether we want to extend that to other types of service, I don't know. But military, I feel like, is one of those things that we should probably have that somewhere in there, that's not held against them for the total number of meetings.
Yeah. The only stipulation that I feel that we would definitely need to have on that, well, I agree, we would definitely that's definitely not a bad thing to have, is that in order to count for attendance, that person would have to communicate with either their coordinator, the department head, whatever the leadership chain in their path is, to verify that they have interacted with someone to be informed about what occurred at that meeting, not just and not to be flippant about it, but not just, hey, I'm going to be down in Florida for the next month for training, can't make it to the next 2 meetings, so just count me there. Because I do know a number of people who are in service, but they've also never really attended board meetings anyways. So there's got to be a little bit of a safeguard in there. Troy?
Just to reference what Tony said, I wouldn't disagree. I think I forget who had mentioned it, is as it pertains to like some fiscal benefits. Yes, having those meetings not count against them makes sense. I think once we start attaching voting rights for the board of directors and waiving that requirement, I think it can touch on like a few other circumstances. And I think in the other situations I've been in where military service was granted that, is tracked. It's not something where just the person in question comes to their supervisor and says, "Oh, I have drill this weekend." There needs to be essentially verifiable proof submitted, and I don't know if that's something that the board wants to get into, having that submitted, tracked, etc. Again, especially as it pertains to solely voting rights.
I mean, Troy does bring up a valid point about needing to verify military service that would interfere with voting rights. But at the same time, if that's something that we want to do, said soldier has the capability of contacting somebody within their unit and get something on official letterhead of their official drill dates. And that's not hard to do.
Right.
I've had to do that on a number of occasions for different employers. And it's very easy to do. It takes 5 minutes at most. And it's pretty straightforward. It's not hard. They submit it on letterhead. It has a point of contact if anyone has questions. So I'm not sure if that's something that the board should track, or if maybe the individual organization would have to track that, like Detour, for example, or SOS, or something like that.
With the fact that we are such a broad organization, I feel we could leave that to the individual coordinators. If a member of SOS that has absolutely nothing to do with Detour were to come into the mix as a board member, I don't see a reason why they would have to know who on Detour is a service member necessarily.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, it's like if I feel like, yeah, we don't need to start delving into people's lives too much. But as far as if we follow at least a little bit of the letter of employment law to state that if a person is in a military status, active or otherwise, or reservist, having that notify someone beforehand, of they are off for military duty, I feel should be enough that we could consider to cover that in the future if we were to work something like that in. That was all I wanted to throw in.
Troy?
Yeah, not to make it sound like I'm a naysayer, as a completely volunteer organization, we have to be 1000% absolutely careful of blurring the lines between employees and volunteers. And the minute we start granting things that are usually reserved for employees under employment law, things like that, we start blurring those lines. It's a dangerous and slippery slope to start, blurring those, especially again, purely for the sake of voting rights. I want to make sure that and we've seen a number of emails from Charles, our attorney, who has suggested that make sure that, I mean, there's some things out there where they don't even like people referring to your staff as staff, because that gives the idea of employment. And as John alluded to, and somebody else had mentioned, I think last meeting, if you do start paying somebody and making them a paid staff, you cannot return that position back to the state of a volunteer position. So the stakes are much larger than what we think we would like to do and what sounds nicer.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe the solution for this is to talk with Charles, our attorney, and get his input and follow his guidance.
Yep. And like I said, John, if you want to work with me on that, being a service member yourself, I don't know if anybody else is, I've not had that discussion. But John, if you want to work on that with me, we can get something worded with your experience over to Charles tonight or tomorrow. Or
yeah, we can do that.
Whenever you have the time available.
With that, just as a question, for those meetings to count for, in theory, for service members, is there an additional benefit to that other than just acquiring voting rights?
How so? What do you?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, if this is something we're trying to move towards, then in looking at what is gained or what is lost or what the improvement is, having those meetings count would gain folks who have not attended the meetings like the others, would gain them voting rights. And I'm just trying to find out if there's other benefits or if it's purely voting rights driven.
That's actually why why I said we need to put some sort of a limiter or stipulation on there that they have to be after the meeting, they also have to be in communication with the whatever their chain of leadership may be, even if it's whatever it may be marked as, so that they are in communication with what's actually going on, so they know. So it's not just, hey, I'm not, just the same kind of situation as walk in, sign in, walk out, so that they're actually knowing what's going on, keeping up. That's why we put that the 60% limit, or the 60% factor on getting voting rights, is to make sure that people are there, that they're participating there. It's to make sure they're there.
Maybe we put in a stipulation that if they're not able to attend because of military duty, they have to follow up with somebody who was there, whether it be somebody within leadership or their division head, or somebody to follow up on what was discussed during that meeting.
And we do have the staff. I do record the staff meetings, and we have them privately available to the staff of Detour, usually about a week or so after the meetings. So that is an option for them to view them after the fact.
Is a good question. It is 7:30. Unless somebody else has something they want to talk about on this subject, we haven't even gotten out of open session yet.
I did want to bring up one last thing that I actually did have a discussion with Charles and a few other diggings of legal issues myself. We have our bylaws, and then we have our articles of incorporation. With every legal specialist I have spoken with, articles of incorporation trump bylaws, which then trumps policies. That is the chain of importance: is articles, bylaws, policies. In this situation, our articles of incorporation still state that ATC membership is $20, whereas our bylaws say membership is $15. In that situation, technically, that means our membership dues are still $20 from the discussions with the legal experts I've had. So I am calling a vote to change, to update the articles of incorporation to $15 so that they are in line. And then at some point in the future, just to go through it with as many of you as are willing to participate with me, our articles of incorporation, to update them to as current as we can, so they are in line with our bylaws.
Question. Do we know how to update the articles of incorporation?
I have no idea. I have not gotten that far in the discussions I have had yet. It's been brought up to me a number of times, but every time I jot it down or somewhere and I forget the note and I forget to bring it up. But the few times I've brought it up at meetings, it's been, none of us are legal specialists. Go talk to the lawyers about it.
There's forms that you fill out through the state attorney's office. There's just some amendment forms. Some of them are specific to what kind of changes you want to make. I know for Quad Cities, we've had to update like our registered agent and stuff like that, and there's specific amendment forms for that. I think you can find that stuff on the website actually for the state attorney general.
I have no idea how to find that. Could you message me a link?
Google the website.
Okay.
This
The
makes
I
a,
think she has it favorited.
this brings up a
You
good
gotta go
point, you
find it.
guys. We have in our bylaws how what it takes to update article or our bylaws with membership votes. Do we need to patch our laws so the board can't just create trumping articles of incorporation to get around bylaws?
Yes, we most definitely do, now that we are going to start updating them.
And Tristan, I can help out with some of that as well.
Thank you very much. Sorry to keep having things pop into my head, Kim. That is the last thing that I had.
That's quite right. Did you actually call the vote though, didn't you? So
yes, I did.
Is there a second, please? Anybody?
Nobody wants to second it?
I'll second that one.
Put me down.
Okay. So we have a second.
All right, all in favor? Wave to the camera.
Okay.
Got it?
That's unanimous
Yep.
for all present.
All right, hence we shall close open session. We'll go back to number 1. It's a recap of cycle board actions and votes. I don't recall, did we have any last month that we voted email on?
No, I don't think so.
Not to my knowledge.
It's just the board position announcements, I think, is really the only thing.
Okay, I'll try to keep a better list so that if something comes up, I know. For the meantime, I guess, add one more thing to my list of duties. All right, I don't believe we have any scheduled visiting parties out on chat
Well,
anywhere.
so do we want to talk about the board position announcements first?
Well,
Do we
that's
need to
not
talk about
agenda.
John?
We can, absolutely, go ahead.
Oh, I thought that was on the list. Okay.
It is above
on
open
the list.
session.
It was before open session.
Oh, it's
So-
okay, it's under the recap.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know where else to put it. I was like, we should just talk about it first. And then
No.
we didn't. So
All right, go right ahead.
oh, you want me to talk about John?
I don't know,
I-
what are we?
so
I mean,
Someone
I,
talk about
so
you know, John made his announcement, I get it,
Yeah,
well,
but
his
I
announcement
think he
was
just sent
actually
it to the
sent
board.
it to the board.
Yeah.
It was not sent out to the public. Although most everybody's talked about it, we do still need to make that official announcement. Kim, you want to do that? Otherwise, I can have a go at it.
I guess.
To which one?
Yeah, I'll find some time. It's fine.
Hmm?
Yes, I will find some time.
Okay, so we'll move on to the new board members.
Well,
Well, no, we just want someone to officially announce what's happening.
yes, I will send an email out to the staff.
Oh, I
I'm
can
open
I
to
can send an
people.
email. I just wanted to talk about it in the meeting. Here. So John Koenig has resigned his position as president, and we're working on getting a special election set up, and things will be communicated to everybody once we figure it out. That's all. He
Okay.
basically resigned mainly for health reasons. So do we want to go ahead and go to coordinator updates?
Do you know when you'll have something out then, Christina? So
No,
that
I'm trying to figure it out with Kevin. I mean, we could
When-
talk about it now.
I mean, we could.
the options for people who want to apply.
Open applications. We can get an email out tonight opening it for applications.
Yeah, we just had to figure out what our end date is and voting date.
Before we make the announcement to the staff. That would be a little backwards.
Well,
I'm
that's what I
sorry,
meant,
you
the-
kind of cut out.
I don't want to open applications for the position without first making the announcement to the staff that he officially resigned.
Can we just do that all in the same email?
Yeah, that's what I was
If
thinking.
I can, that would be the most proactive thing.
Yeah, that was my assumption, is that we could have an email formed to go out tonight with that notification. Tonight, tomorrow, just as soon as possible, with that notification, then following to open up the applications.
And so I guess as a board, we need to decide when we would want this vote to take place, or when can it take place. I don't actually know the laws behind that.
The special election shall be held at the meeting following the resignation or removal. So theoretically, it should take place at the next Anime Detour meeting, but
next-
we're kind of in special times.
Yeah, the next.
I believe it's a board meeting because that's the only meeting that is talked about in your bylaws.
No, we also talk about Anime Detour meetings in our bylaws, especially
In the
around,
removal process and the
Uh,
replacement.
we talk about it in a few areas, but in this case, we never have voting at board meetings, or else we'd only get like 4 people who could vote.
Yeah, we.
I think that might be another thing that needs to be clarified, because if it just
absolutely
says,
does.
if it just says the next meeting, that could be the next meeting of any part of the organization.
And that would have been this meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it doesn't specify, that should be amended to
um,
specify, because otherwise,
I know that was
Hold on,
on one of my list of things to bring up at some point
Okay.
too. But yeah,
There was something. Where was it?
I think would at least be in the spirit of it if we just have it relatively shortly. Give them a few weeks to decide if they want to run and submit candidacy. Another week of open voting seems fair, since it took people about a week to vote the first time.
So our next board meeting is June 9th. Does that sound right?
That is correct.
We want to maybe have voting from like the 31st to the 6th, Sunday through Saturday, or
So I know in our emails discussing it, I know because we have in we have in history done these at the staff meetings, and the next scheduled staff meeting was going to be on the 24th of this.
Well, that's not
it's not a
scheduled,
lot
it's
of time to
it's
get
not going to be
applications,
held.
but
Well, that's why I said the next one that was scheduled. not
Yeah.
going to be held. But that so in this situation, if we were to stick to that and it had not been canceled, this would have been at that meeting.
Can I also suggest that if that bit gets amended to clarify on the next meeting, that it just be changed to like within 60 days or something like that?
As
Because then we
designated.
can avoid these, then we can avoid these situations where somebody, like I know it was talked about where somebody resigned and then, oh, the meeting is tomorrow. Now what do we do?
Yep.
You know, I think that's probably better than tying it to a specific meeting and then the board can just set it to something that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree with that 1000%.
So just putting it out there, and it looks like there are some that have a few questions about it. How do we explain that? That definitely resolves it going forward. How do we explain our actions currently?
Regarding
Well, it seems like we're at best perhaps conveniently interpreting the bylaws.
Honestly, since we only vote at meetings, at Detour staff meetings, and technically we only have one single annual voting meeting too. I mean, you could interpret that as either next Detour meeting or the next postmortem. The bylaws are very vague.
Sure, and and all I'm suggesting is, and
Yep.
I'm not even saying I disagree with you. I'm saying when people read the bylaws and it says must be handled at the next meeting, they could interpret this as the next meeting. And I'm just
True.
suggesting that as a board, we are going to have to be able to explain why we either did A or B, and take any questions or disagreeable thoughts that come with it.
so would anybody be opposed to at this point in time making a proposal to amend the bylaws to state that it is at the next meeting within 60 days as chosen by the board or something to that situation to be more specific, so to not necessarily lock us into it's the next meeting, whether it be because that meeting we're not just we're ATC, we're not just Detour, that's SOS, charities, clubs. It could be whichever of those meetings happens to be next. So to get us out of that situation, to give us the opportunity to choose which of the next meetings within 60 days, to give us the opportunity to get it out there, let people apply, and actually, similar to how we do the annual.
There are some
I
people
don't
that have
know if-
questions in the chat.
Hang on,
We
Kevin's got his hand up.
Sorry, I was reading
Yeah.
the bylaws.
We should really remove the word meeting from there, because in times like this, and if we probably are going to do another online vote, that's not a meeting. We should maybe say something like at a venue of the board's choosing, no more than 60 days out, and with no less than 1 week notice. That way we can make it so the board doesn't say, oh, it's going to be at Joe's basement at 5 minutes from now. What,
You don't
guys didn't
necessarily
get an
even,
email?
you don't necessarily even have to specify a location. I
No.
mean, just, within X days with this much notice.
Sure. Yep.
But of
That would
course,
fix
that,
it too.
like Troy was saying, that fixes the problem going forward, but
It
doesn't
does.
fix what we do right now.
True. Quick thing. Someone in the chat comments is calling for a vote right now. I know I, as a board member, am not comfortable voting on that, seeing as we just announced the position 5-10 minutes ago, and that has given no notice to anyone who was not privately informed about it. That to me gives me the feel of
For what?
And we have technically no official applications for the position, therefore
Technically, we could
nothing to
open
vote on.
Yeah. Technically, we could open the vote for all of 2 seconds and close it again, and nobody could vote, and then we could push the vote to another time.
I mean,
Unless they're talking about voting on the bylaws amendment, which again, I don't think we can actually do.
his
Oh, they're specifically talking about the
in
president's resignation.
in regard to your comment that his announcement was made prior to this meeting, his announcement was not made publicly prior to this meeting. It was made. I know he has told his friends privately, and he has emailed the board about it. There was no public announcement on behalf of the board or the organization stating that the position is open for election. So to just suddenly go, "Hey, it's open. We're holding the election in 10 minutes." That is
Well,
not
okay,
anywhere
and
near something I'm comfortable with.
I Troy's had his hand up, but I would also like to make a statement. So go, Troy.
I just have again, a quick question. And again, these aren't questions that I'm trying to hardball the board with. I think these are questions that we have to answer for our, 300 membership. Is there any reason that this wasn't announced sooner after it was made known to the board? People, I guarantee you the percentage of people that know that John has resigned is high.
Yeah.
And the confusion becomes why they haven't heard it from an official source. Why was no official announcement made?
I know in the discussions that I had, my understanding was that we were going to announce it today.
Yeah, that's
at the official meeting. I mean, if it had been longer, I definitely think we could have done it. But
I think we also
was
wanted to get
3 or 4 days.
the idea, the dates for the voting in place when we
Like-
announced it as well. We don't want to announce position or without it without the plan of
how to
the election.
address it.
Truth
Exactly.
be told, the times that we're dealing in right now are very different than we had in the previous years. We just were working on consolidating and coordinating, getting a voting system set up for the current elections when this all went down. There was very little precedence that we have for handling any of this. And yes, we do have the bylaws, but our bylaws don't have anything on, hey, how are we going to handle this during COVID-19? Let's check. So we are trying to do the best we can with what we have to make sure that we're being consistent and keep things moving at an easy pace so that we're not confusing anybody, especially ourselves. I'm going to stop talking.
But I would also
I
submit that
appreciate that. That makes sense. We have to be
Big-
flexible right now.
But having people know that this information is out there, but not hearing it from their official source has been consistent with a known issue. And if I'm a member, I would state there was probably no reason why it couldn't have been announced that John was resigning. And like we did with canceling Detour, the entirety of the convention, further information will be forthcoming. We have a duty, I think, to get that information out to the membership. And frankly, I would rather have it come from the board than, social messaging.
On the counterpoint of that, as a coordinator, you were part of those emails, and you could have also voiced that concern to us, because, I mean, we do. At least I try to listen to you guys as well, because you are your members, and you do make the foundation of this. We're not the 7 of us board members are not the only ones that have a voice.
Part of my frustration, I think, in many areas, has been the overall assumption by and for lack of a better phrase, the public, that at these board meetings, we have some deep, dark secrets that we're hiding from people. I don't see how letting people know 5 days earlier that John is stepping down would have made any difference to the public.
Because they were told. And otherwise, it looks like 5 days of a secret.
Then they want a secret. They want to find somebody guilty.
Yeah.
This is not anything. He's stepping down for health. We're going to have an election, and they're going to have just as much a chance to run for that as anything else.
Right, but we could have told them 5 days earlier what was going on with the board, and almost every candidate that runs for the board speaks about transparency, and this does not speak of transparency.
I guess what would be more transparent? Anytime we receive an email, do we just make those emails 100% public? I don't think that a 5-day difference in the resignation of a member when we have a meeting coming up in 6 days, I don't think that that's a big deal. I could see if this had been 2 weeks coming. Yeah, okay, fine. But we're talking like he's announcing his resignation to us 6 days ago.
At 9 o'clock at night.
So really 5 days ago, I guess. I mean, that to me, that's kind of a bit going overboard. If people want to say, okay, well, that's a secret, then yeah, like Michelle said, they're looking for secrets. This isn't a secret. And the other thing would be if people are finding out about this in some other social meetings or social ways, that's, I mean, anything and everything can go through those types of, social ways, and you know, doesn't necessarily make it true. So I think just because there's potential for hearsay about members doesn't necessarily mean that we should be like, I guess I don't feel like this is untransparent. We're being transparent at a meeting. We're announcing this is what's happened. I mean, I don't know. I have no better way of saying that. I don't think that this is holding off until the meeting is that. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think we're grasping for straws here.
Heather, you've had your hand up. You're muted.
Or yeah, sorry. Guys, I think we need to remember to be kind to ourselves here. I can't, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who mentioned this previously, but the fact is that this is an unusual situation that we're all in. This is an unusual situation that the entire world is in. And I know I would be pretty confident in saying that none of us are functioning at 100% right now. That nobody, I think, in the world is functioning at 100% normal right now. We're all under the weight of what's going on. We're all under the constraints of what's going on. Things are not going to be processed as neatly and efficiently as they might normally be under these circumstances. So I think, I mean, getting caught off guard by this happening, having to coordinate everything, by email, it's like, I agree that it's only been a few days. It makes sense for the board to have waited to come together on a cohesive message, and it's just the spoons are just not there for everybody to just come together and efficiently handle things as we normally would. And I would hope that people would be understanding and patient about that, as I'm sure that everybody out there, everybody listening right now, everybody everywhere is not at their best at the moment. And I just want to remind us to be kind to ourselves, because I know we're all under stress.
And one other point as to the secrecy of it, that was not the intent of this. We did have the discussion. It was either that evening, the next day, within a very short order of when are we going to announce it, and we did make that decision very quickly that we were going to announce it at this board meeting, not a month or weeks away.
I appreciate what you're trying to share there, but it fades out really fast when you paste stuff on there. I don't even get a chance to read the whole blurb before it disappears.
Sorry, there's the whole chat window's on the right. I figure people can read it at their own leisure.
I can actually. Hey, side note, how do I actually open that chat? I was trying to find the chat, and
there should be a balloon icon in the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, it's like if you hover over it, it says expand the chat panel.
There it is. I was looking for that earlier and I couldn't find it. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, so I was just throwing those in there as notes of other things that we had talked about, just so that we had them available.
So basically at this point, kind of throughout this meeting, we've thrown a lot of bylaws, updating, adjusting, that sort of thing around. So far, we have voted on one, so one will need to be presented. I think for all the rest of them, we need to look at the bylaws, rewrite them in that bylaw format, like the way Kevin did the last couple of times. Yep. Present them next time. That way it's all clear. We know what we're doing instead of just trying to write things down really quick to understand it, because there's been at least 3 of them. And so we'll get that done before the next meeting and then present them for a vote. Does that sound okay? think
Seems
Tristan,
fair
you've
to
kind
me.
of brought up most of them.
Yeah, yeah, we're
Okay.
going to be going through the articles.
So let's
and
yeah,
trying to
we've got
update
a
the
lot of
bylaws.
paperwork to do.
So
I don't think we should vote on any more of that unless something else specific comes up that is
right now we do need to
simpler.
specifically
Yeah.
choose a point at which to open elections and a point at which to close the election.
Correct.
For
That
this
is something we need to
position.
do. Yep. So I'm just looking at timing, giving people time to apply. I mean, if we think a week or 2 weeks is long enough, maybe we could close applications on the 23rd and
Um,
then have voting, or we could go out another week. I don't know.
Seeing as we do have things coming up in the next few months, I don't know, Kim. Can you think of anything that specifically contract wise is going to be coming up in the next few months?
Contract wise, no.
Okay. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we push this out, but I also don't. I feel.
Have a president sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I would. I mean, the 24th is.
Hey,
That's
also, I
12
mean,
days.
I don't know what people's plans are, but that is Memorial Weekend.
The
So
24th. Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's true.
I was gonna say a week. I was thinking 3 weeks. A week to apply. A week to people to, consider, and then we do it. The same thing we did for this. Several days to actually
We have the voting.
cast their vote. So
We actually gave them almost a week to cast their vote.
yeah, so 3 weeks.
People
weeks
took the
total.
entire time.
So yeah, so that is so is that something that anybody would feel comfortable doing? Getting an email out tonight, and then tomorrow, opening the application process, getting those posted a week from today, allowing people another week, and then from Tuesday to that following Monday, that third week from now, being the voting period.
That seems fair to me.
Yes, that sounds great. But can you do it again with actual numbers so I can write them down?
Let me open my
I'm like a
calendar.
week from to what?
So,
open on the 13th.
13th to the 19th being the application period, being 1 week. The 20th to the 26th being the, I don't know what you call that, a consideration period.
Review.
Thank you, a review period. And then the 27th to the 2nd being the voting period, which gives us, which we could then announce on the 3rd, the person who wins, giving them that 1 week to prepare for the board meeting the following Tuesday.
Okay. Works.
I have a thought, and please do shoot me down.
No.
Mostly because I think it would, of course, require bylaws change to actually work, which is we just had a vote, and the two favorite candidates are now in this meeting with us. So now we're asking the people to vote on whoever would be president. Basically, my thought is allowing Ashley and John to also run for president.
Technically, any board
think
member
any-
can run for
Yeah.
president, and
Yeah.
we'll appoint a backfill.
Okay, good.
Yes,
All
correct.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's say,
We've had this happen.
yeah, let's say
if I remember
Kevin,
right.
if
Point-
Kevin
I
were
wanted
to
to
run and
point
get
that out.
elected, if Kevin were to run and get elected as the president, the next step, since we would then have a vacancy, the board then elects.
Kevin is a bad example.
I'm one of the
Still.
2 bad examples.
Either way, if one of the sitting board members at large is elected as president, then the board elects a person to fill that position, and then the voting populace, the voting members, are given the option, are then given the vote to not. It's not an
Fabulous.
election; it's a yes or no.
Fabulous.
Vote.
You've just pointed out why you, John, and Ashley can run for this job. That's all I wanted to make sure.
You can too.
I mean, but you can. You don't have to.
Remember, I've already got 2.5 years in on
Yeah.
this and still have another year.
But yes,
I'm going to need a break at the end of that.
Then? You're all set then to go for tomorrow?
Yes, I have everything I need.
Okay.
okay. So who would like to sit down with me and we can do this over chat. A WebEx would be nice because faces are pretty. So who would like to sit down with me and go over all of the articles of incorporation, all of the bylaws, so that we can update them and make sure that they are both in coordination with each other, as well as further update the bylaws to mitigate any broad kick in the pants things like
Tristan,
meeting.
pick a date. Pick a time and date.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, no longer board members being on it, I would love to sit in on that. I know the bylaws back and forth.
I am honestly in favor of not just board members. Anybody that wants populous board. I mean, there's people out there that are not board members, coordinators, or anything to do with the board that have far more experience with this than I am. So if anyone would like to be part of this, please email me at tristan.anderson@animetwincities.org. I would gladly love to have a number of people involved in this.
But we both know that things go forward better if a date is picked rather than just people volunteering and not having a date.
Ain't that the truth, sister?
How's next weekend sound? Saturday, Sunday, whatever works best, just to try to avoid people's work, taking up everybody's evening, because this is gonna be a long, multi-hour thing.
I saw that, Ashley.
In the evening. My weekend days are pretty much garbage.
Yeah, next weekend is not available for me.
Okay. Is there a time a time or day that would work best for most people? I'm usually off by 6.
You could also have multiple small sessions too, because you don't necessarily want to burn people out. So, and that way you're not trying to coordinate. I think I saw like 5-6 people.
Quick
so
thing.
You could have notes from each one.
Exactly, and then one quick thing, World Boss. I'm not trying to ignore the articles in favor of the bylaws. The articles were written almost 20 years ago. The bylaws have been updated, and not a lot of people understood or considered that the articles, or even thought that they trumped them, and that's what we're trying to get in place to get them updated. Because we've updated the bylaws over the years, not just us as a board, but previous boards, thinking that was the appropriate thing to do, and now we found out that we missed a step, so we're trying to correct that, not just ignore it. Because if we're going to go by those old articles, that's going to cause difficulties in a lot of things, and that's why we're looking at trying to get them updated, and that's why we're going to update the bylaws, trying to fix a lot of these loopholes that people left open, as well as getting the articles updated in line with this modern situation we're in. Current, not modern. Better word.
Yeah.
If please, if you've I don't know who I know 2 or 3 people in this chat. As a reminder to everybody, now that the board meetings are counted towards voting eligibility, please, if you do want to be considered for voting rights, do remember to email Christina at christina.kramer@animetwincities.org.
Or ATC_statutory. Either will work.
Sure. Either one. All of our emails are our first name dot our last name at animetwincities.org. Just to let her know who you are, so that you can be counted as in attendance. But World Boss, if I see you obviously are very passionate about this, please email me. I like to see passionate people involved in this, especially since if they're not on the board, and I want to have people involved in this.
All right. So you'll pick some times and you'll all get together. Great. All right.
What's next?
Move on to the coordinators. Troy, you got anything for us regarding Detour?
Nope, we're still sorting out, we have a few staff issues that, we're working on, some restructuring there. And we'll probably be moving forward and looking at how to do a post-mortem without the, benefit of a convention to sort of rely on as the, end result of the fruits of our labor. It might be, structured more between, vice chairs and their department heads. Things that and of course the department heads could bring in and carry in information from their department about how the convention planning cycle went. We will have a discussion therein about not only the positives and negatives of that for each department, things that we would like to perhaps look at or see moving forward in terms of progress, or addressing areas of efficiency, things like that. And then there is a review element as well to the department heads as to various things on how we felt that they did this convention cycle, although again very different to gauge based on not having that end result. That's essentially all we're really able to do. Again, I think I'd mentioned it before. I just want people to be aware without any general concept of how long any of this might go on or what effect it will have on us or gatherings of our type. That should it go much further into the year, towards the end of the year, I think as we get closer to that general point, it's going to be more and more difficult to consider Anime Detour 2021. If we are under things like this until December, we will not be able to put on the same sort of convention in 3 months planning time. So we don't, with the, I wouldn't say constant, but with the 3 or 4 extensions that we've had, the 18th is the current date for things to start reopening. But again, I just want people to not just immediate, we have a number of dates that we have to stay aware of between now and that first weekend in April 2021, and they could have an effect on how we plan for 2021. Unless there's any other questions, that's it.
All right, thank you. Michelle, anything under charities? How is the letter going?
I did write up a letter. I sent it out to several people. I didn't really get much of a response other than a couple of spelling repairs, which I will obviously take into note. It is my plan to send that out before the end of the week to the various charities because a couple of them have reached out to us to let them know. And
Address or something, let me know, because if I sent a physical check in the past, I probably have their address.
that was the thing. Do we want to send it as a paper or a digital letter kind of thing? Do we have letterhead or should I make,
I have a letterhead that I use. I
okay.
can
Well, I can finish the letter and send it over to you for you to print it off then and do it. I will fix things. We're not talking like 100 letters here. We're talking a couple of dozen.
Yeah, no,
So-
that's fine. That's fine. I can print them and mail them off. That doesn't bother me at all.
Okay, I don't want to add more work to you, Kim. So
Anyway, because I would normally be sending checks out usually in the next couple of weeks. So if we could have it done by the end of the month, that would be preferable.
you will have it done before the end of the month.
All right. So then also under charities, that's all you had for that, right?
Right.
Okay. So then as the board maybe is aware, we did get that leg request from Dan, I believe his name, Dan Kramer. Daniel Kruger. Did everybody read his request?
I had trouble reading it. Didn't really see what his request was.
Okay.
I did not get a copy of that.
Who said that? I'm sorry.
I did.
John Itzen.
John, I don't think John or Ashley would have gotten.
Yeah, it
copies
was
of
sent before you guys were added to the distro list. If
Correct.
you've even been added. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out.
Well, I did reach out to Daniel and I got actual in his request. He doesn't ask for a specific dollar amount or anything like that, but I did reach out to him and I got copies of bills from both the clinics that he went to. And his two bills that he submitted are a total of $3,533.15. I'm not opposed to helping him out. I do want to be sort of careful in I don't want to seem hard-hearted, but I also want to be very mindful of the fact that as things progress, we may get more and more and more requests for help from the leg fund from people. And I just want to be careful about which ones maybe we approve, which ones we don't, how much we approve on each one. So, I don't know how anybody feels about it. I mean, the two bills, one was from a hospital and it was for lab and emergency rooms, and doesn't look like he had insurance to help cover it because it did say he got like an uninsured discount, so I'm assuming he had no health insurance to help cover any of the costs. That was the larger of the bills. The other one, it looks like it was from another clinic, a different clinic that he must have gone to for labs and stuff like that, and it looks like he's on a payment plan for that one. So thoughts from anybody? I mean, I'd like to be able to help out a little bit somewhere along the way. I don't know that I'm willing to help out on all of it.
Kim, I've been in his shoes before. It's been a while, luckily. I kind of agree with you. We need to, due to the fact that we don't have the resources that we've had in the past, we need to be more conservative about stuff. He is on a payment plan with the one clinic. They can't push him for anything more than the payment plan. The hospital bill, I could see that one as a possibility, but Troy has a comment there.
I just wanted to find out if we're able to say what the balance of the leg fund currently is, or is that?
Yes, the leg fund currently stands at $13,151.43.
Okay. And I know at one point I may be confusing board meetings. Was I don't know. We had talked about? Is there a cap on outside of like a tax penalty cap? Outside of that, is there a cap on the amount for any one donation from that fund, or over lifetime?
I believe it's like 19,000 or 10,000, or it's pretty high for any single person.
So it is, and that did you say that was from tax purposes or just like per our policy?
That was just how it was set up.
The tax purposes, I believe, is like 10,000 per year, isn't it, Kim?
Yeah, that would be their own personal side, though. So
I mean, I realize that we have a balance, but I'm wondering if at any given point we wouldn't like to look at a one-time donation maximum for people. I think it would allow us to help more people throughout a calendar year. if it wasn't, you know, in $4,000 or $5,000 chunks. And I guess realizing that everybody needs a hand up every so often, I think it should be something that we might want to consider a lifetime. You know, one, if we've given to you once, there are a number of other people that we could additionally help.
That can certainly be something in the future, although just for records in the past, we have given to the same person 3 times in the past.
Right.
They never went past the overall limit set in the guidelines. So
But it just seems that like at some point it becomes, you know, I would just, that's just my stance on it, that I think we would be able to serve more people with a smaller amount, and we would be able to serve more people if we were able to help one person one time. We are able to help a broader scope of the community from that fund versus 3 people one time or one person 3 times.
right, I totally agree, and that I think we have it at our discretion to approve or not approve the whole dollar amount at any given time. There's, you know, it's always our choice whether or not we're going to approve everything they ask for.
But it's also, I think, like you're saying, it's also hard to figure out how much to give and not feel, you know, miserly or whatever word applies there.
Right, absolutely. I personally, I mean, looking at the bills, I mean, and I can certainly forward them to the board. I'm not opposed to paying the one bill. I think the larger of the two, I think that would give him a helping hand. The other one, you know, it's about half the size of, one is 2,200 and one is just shy of 1,300. You know, certainly give him a helping hand, and while it's not paying for everything, and it still leaves a pretty healthy balance yet in the limit at this point.
But that, so mathematically, that's essentially like 1/6 of what we have in reserve to help the community.
The 22, it's about, yeah, it's about 18%, 17% of the balance if the one bill is.
I mean, I realize times are tough, but you know, I think if we max people, I'm not saying we have to do it at this instance, but I think there should be a max, some sort of maximum amount, $1,000 or something. That's still a significant help to people's bills versus, I mean, by that token, we might be able to help 6 people this year. And I guess from my stance, I was just looking to broaden that assistance into the community, particularly in these times. As you've said, we will probably most likely see a large increase in number of requests made.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the first one, I'm actually surprised it's the first one I've seen. So
Right, true.
We don't get huge numbers every year, though.
we do not. No.
So, but I guess that at this point there's 2 choices then. Do we pay $1,000 towards the hospital bill, or we pay the whole hospital bill, or 3 choices, we pay all of it? My vote is we pay the hospital bill, the larger one, and he's got payment plan for the other one, and he'll have to deal with it, but not having the larger hospital bill over his head should make it easier for him to deal with that.
I would be comfortable with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
agree with
essentially,
Michelle.
we're taking 2/3 of the cost away from him. So
I'm going to propose that we pay the hospital bill. And anybody else want to second that?
Just before we quick vote, sorry, Kim, I'm bouncing between staying involved in this, a few private messages that have popped up regarding our conversation, as well as the YouTube chat. Could you break the numbers down for me one more time? I missed that part.
okay, so the hospital bill was $2,259.71. And then the clinic bill was $1,273.44. Both of those bills that he submitted, he has a payment plan on the clinic bill. So, I mean, given the choice, I I also would choose to pay the hospital bill.
Okay.
The one that was the emergency room, the larger of the two, which essentially takes care of 2/3 of his outstanding balance.
Okay.
In his request, he didn't ask for a specific amount. He just asked for whatever we thought we could help with. So
Okay.
I think he'd be more than pleased with that.
Okay. Yes, I will second the paying the hospital bill.
All right. All in favor of the $2,259.71 being paid to the Riverview Healthcare Clinic through the leg account? Christina, you good?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I will reach out to Dan tomorrow morning and let him know. I have the address. I will pay the hospital directly.
Can I propose that, given what Troy said, I think that might be something we need to look into discussing, having some kind of a cap. I'm not necessarily saying that this was too much. I voted to provide it, but just because we don't have a cap, it would be nice to just make sure that we do have one, and it would also make it a little bit easier on us, having to determine whether we vote for something or against, a bill like this. If we didn't have to think as much on that, if we more so had a rule or a guideline that said, oh, okay, well, here's how much we can provide,
Okay.
rather than going, okay, well, which bill is really cut and dry, here's how much we can provide you. I think that might be something that would be worth looking into at least, or discussing.
I totally
Probably at a
agree.
later date, not today.
And perfectly acceptable, Tony. I will say that I don't know where the original guidelines for the leg account are any longer. At one point I thought Kale had them, but we've searched long and hard for them many times.
I'm sorry, the what?
Nobody could seem to find them.
The
So
what now?
might be something that we're starting from scratch.
What?
They're looking for guidelines on the leg account.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that would have existed at perhaps a policy level versus a bylaw level, because obviously there's nothing in the bylaw
There's
about
not any in the bylaws, but there is a list. Give me a moment. In the notes.
Have people dug like through their emails and stuff? And
I
Kale,
back through my
Kale
emails
lost
for hours
access
ago.
to the emails from the early days of when it was being set up.
so I wonder if, assuming that it was sent out to the board at some point. I mean, I've been.
I know in talks with them it has been run by Charles,
Okay.
and the legal stance of the legal stance of it is, as long as we're paying the bills, it is in accordance with our bylaws, our articles, and government regulations on how we're dispersing the money. So as long as we are paying the bills in the company directly.
I'm trying to think, is there anybody currently involved with the board who's been getting these emails as long as I have?
I've been getting emails about 10 years, and I've dug through everything.
Oh,
And I
Kim,
would say
obviously.
also Heather, but I'm pretty confident that that's something I clean right out of my email.
I save everything, so I will see if I have it.
I'm not a saver. Come on.
I am a digital pack rat. If it was ever sent to me, I probably have it. So I will look for it.
I can only purge so many things out of my life, and email is one of them.
I just have a general, it might be more of a philosophical question about how we look at the leg fund. So I know we said we don't get as many requests from that. Sort of, what is our, sorry.
That's right. I got a cat crawling all over my desk.
Never apologize for your pets.
What is our general thought process on, or kind of our philosophy about how to go about, I realize, should we put anything out there on social media about the existence of this fund to help the community? We would theoretically be inundated with a number of requests and would probably be able to find enough to I wouldn't want to say bankrupt the fund, but enough to bring it to a null sum.
Well,
So how do people, what is our thought process as a board on how people would find out about this? Is it strictly through word of mouth? And I don't want to say accidentally clicking on the website, but finding it that way? Where do we kind of fence sit on?
Well, we asked for donations in the merch room at con.
Yeah, and that's
On the
something
registration
definitely
form, there's actually a spot to donate to.
that is
And I
also
guess I was thinking more of in trying to, do we do anything to get word out to the community that we're hoping to help with this fund? Or are we more comfortable,
well,
I don't
I-
believe that we do, Troy.
I know that
And I'm not
there's
suggesting
been a
we should.
couple of times where basically we did a crowd fund and use the leg fund to match whatever crowd funded in a particular case.
We have done that, yep.
So that also, and we publicize that via, here's this case we're looking to crowd fund, but it's been a while. I don't know the details on it.
that is definitely something we should definitely look at. If we're going to be advertising it in any way, we definitely need to be advertising, hey, this is there. We're looking to try to help,
Well,
but we need help with it.
I have a suggestion, and I'm comfortable voicing it because you guys can't throw anything at me.
I know where you live.
Would you feel comfortable looking at an amount from the leg fund that we would I don't want to say do a social media push, but put out there onto social media. See, a lot of people, like Heather said, need help during these times. So if we set aside, took a certain amount of money and accepted proposals from people, not saying to use all of the leg fund, but if, for instance, if it was $5,000, but the most that out of that $5,000 in this round that we would donate to any one person was $500, it could help a number of people during these times. So just a suggestion. Feel free to aid
Yeah,
it.
no,
Well-
every little bit helps.
Well, this could be something the charities department does in the next few weeks, next few months the most, is perhaps a fundraising drive that ties to a grant program to help people. Like say we're going to, we're going to do a fundraiser for the leg fund. We will match up to this amount, and we will then be taking grant requests for people who have been put in a position because of the COVID for us to pay out from the leg fund. That
Yeah.
way, those of us who are still working and not as fiscally impacted can help the community by giving to the crowd fund, and those that have been fiscally impacted by COVID might have a source to help them.
It just seems like an all-around positive during these times that we have the money to be able
Yeah.
to help the community, that we could do that, and we're not pointing to it after the fact to say, look at the good thing we did. We're saying we're trying to help, and we have a little bit to put out there. Just a thought.
We
Okay.
can call it get a leg up.
And it's
Yeah.
definitely something that Troy, we should reach out to Buttons to work with, see what how we can work with her on getting this out there. Since
Well,
as we
Buttons
all
is
know,
for Anime Detour,
yes, but that's
and this is Anime Twin City.
No, I understand that. I'm talking sharing it across all of our platforms, since
Yep.
especially
yeah.
since Detour does have a larger
Sure.
fan base.
I'm just trying to
be
make
blunt
sure
about it.
I'm not giving Buttons a job.
No. That's
because
why I
as
said
Troy has pointed out to me
That's
many
what-
times.
That's why I
That's-
said reach out to her and talk to her about it. Not we can't make her do it, but we can still talk to her about it. I mean-
I'm very carefully walking that line of not assuming that Detour's social media people would be working on an Anime Twin Cities thing.
No, absolutely.
No, it's
absolutely,
just like
absolutely.
it's like we talked about at the last meeting. If it's just to if it's just to push, that's pretty easy for us to do, is to share those media platforms.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. Moving on. Clubs, community. Christina, in the future, I think you can slash them together because
Yeah.
clubs actually isn't going to exist anymore. It's all going to be under the community.
Right.
I talked to Eric. He doesn't have anything major going on outside of Final Fantasy. The clubs aren't really meeting right now because they can't gather. And
Weird.
community Pride has already been canceled or
Mhm.
postponed, and I haven't heard obviously anything from the St. Cloud, Nagasaki, from Como or anything like that. So I'm assuming that most of those summer events probably won't go on, but we will take them one day at a time and move on for them. Hope for the best.
Here, here.
So, Jay, under media relations, do you have anything for us? Your posts have been really great.
Do
Thank you.
better.
If I were to give, say, a monthly, statement, the ATC Facebook page has at least gone up by 4% in views,
Sweet.
17% in people reached, 33% in likes, and our engagement, our post engagements have gone up by 5%.
Oops.
That's just over the last 28, 30 days. So.
Cool.
Excellent.
So we're getting out there. I introduced it was just a little weird thing, Fandom Fridays. I post a little thing on Fridays about, hey, what's your favorite this? And just a theme for the Friday. And so far those have garnered a few engagements here and there.
I like.
So it's not all just, here's a meeting, we're voting, hey, here's this. Something fun.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Great job. Might
And,
you
What other platforms are you on, Jay?
running when we officially open the position again? Into it?
It's on my radar.
Okay.
I am working, as Tristan made a comment way earlier in the like hours ago now. I'm working on helping to generate a good little blurb of what the job might entail,
Okay.
volunteer job might entail. As what Michelle said. So yeah, trying to keep the Facebook site a little more organized and coordinated. I have been refocusing and trying to repurpose I just spaced on Instagram. There we go. The Instagram page, as well as I did create an ATC Twitch account, which I am still working to garner some little things on that, finding some of our, I don't want to say guests, our attendees that, known attendees from the community that are also Twitch people that also are all, a little more family friendly, so to speak, that I might be able to help share some of their Twitch sites through ours as well. So little things here and there that we're working on,
Excellent. Way to
as
go.
well as trying to build the team up. So
Question.
that's. Oh yes, sir.
Are we using Twitter?
Not yet.
I will state from
That is
from
actually a question. I have a question actually for Heather, only because John originally gave me a wrong email address. So when I sent a letter to Twitter, the email address I gave them was actually the email address that SOS uses. And so just in case, Twitter may have sent an email to the social,
Okay.
just in case.
I haven't
John-
seen anything.
Okay.
I can look in my spam real fast.
John sent that to me and said, "Oh, this is the one we normally use for media." And I was like, "Cool."
It
Sent
is
an email.
not. That would be media at.
I know, but then
Yeah.
like literally a week later, John went, "I may have goofed," and I'm like, "I already sent it."
No, I don't see anything.
Okay. So yes, that is something that I am still working on, and I will win or find a plan B solution so that ATC is once again tweeting happily
I don't tweet, so okay.
like the little orange and blue birds we are.
I barely manage Facebook. I'm kind of old.
Ditto, Kim. Ditto.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Jay. Heather, how's the SOS front going?
Well, I have nothing really to say. Since I think my branch of the organization is the one more severely affected by all of this.
I know, it's so sad.
But I mean the Discord is still out there. Activities dropped down a bit since we haven't been able to coordinate any kind of structured activity for that yet. I'm going to reach out to my team again about hopefully doing something like that. I think across the board, like I was saying earlier, is that people in general, I think, are dragging their feet on things, including me, because I'm just definitely not at 100%.
Heather,
so-
have you seen some of the conventions that have gone online and done events online? Like a convention that Jay and I normally attend was Demicon, which was the first just general science fiction convention, and they went totally online this year. And I know several others are doing that, and I didn't know if something like that. And I admit I haven't seen any of them. I'm not trying to push work on you. It might be something you might actually kind of enjoy, or that one of your staff members might like to host a couple of online events via the way they did them. I don't know.
Well, that's been the
So-
plan. So I mean, when
Okay.
you've seen stuff like that, we have promoted it. But also that's been kind of the plan with the Discord server that we set up, was that not only to give people a place to chat with each other, but also as a base for like streaming parties and things like that. We just haven't managed to go forward with anything in particular along those lines just yet. So I know I've got some of the new people on my team had some specific ideas they were excited about doing, and I'm gonna reach out to them again about moving forward with some of that stuff. But that's yeah.
Jay looks a little hyper.
You're doing the happy dance.
Well, it's just a thought. I mean, perhaps Heather, you and I could maybe partner on like you're working with your team, but from the media side of things, we could maybe work something out to garner some digital socializing. Maybe. Just a thought.
Sure. I mean, I'm hesitating just because I'm not sure how that's different from what we're already doing. So
Any way that I could help, I guess, is what I'm
sure.
Promote it more.
Yeah.
Right. There's that.
Since you mentioned the streaming part too, we have the Twitch channel. You know,
I'm
You know,
more
that
than
goes-
willing to jump in on the streaming if you guys are not too familiar with things and learn you the things I've learned.
You're
Yes.
gonna learn us good on this stuff.
I'm learning you good. Sorry,
Yeah, so there was actually an online convention that literally started up after Detour canceled, mainly specifically because we canceled. Anime Lockdown happened, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
There's also been
So-
cancellation.
Yeah. So, well, I specifically mentioned lockdown because I know the two organizers. They're both attendees of Detour.
Ooh.
One of them's an audio engineer out in New York. So if you wanted to look into kind of that as an option, it was literally two guys who ran the entire convention for the weekend. Granted, they only had one panel room, as you could call it. It was really just one panel stream. But that would definitely be something I could put you in touch with them easily, very easily, if you wanted to start looking down that road to kind of have them advise as to what you would need to get to have that work out. They got decent numbers for viewers, and yeah. So I mean that'd be something that's definitely worth looking into. And if you need contact with them, I can definitely provide that. That's super easy.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I
So,
know
I
there's-
mean,
just wanted to make sure I brought that
Sure.
up. So.
Right. So, I mean, for what we do is pretty small scale. So, I mean, to begin with, we've got I've got people that, have ideas and have sort of a plan going. We just have to actually get in there and try and do it. But if I run into anything where we're looking to do more, we run into any kind of roadblock and we don't know how to do this, I can definitely reach out to the board and ask for help, because it sounds like there's a lot of resources among you guys. So that's good to know. Yeah, and then once we get something set up or planned or scheduled, I'll definitely let Jay know, so we can get word out to people about
All
stuff.
team trying to back each other up.
Yep, for sure. So we do have like a promo channel on the Discord server and stuff. So likewise, if you guys know of anything that we should push out to our audience, let me know. We can absolutely do that. In fact, Jay, I don't know if you joined the server or not, but if you did, we could loop you in on stuff, and you could do stuff like that directly. Although I don't know how much more you want to get involved in doing a job that isn't really yours. But the option is there if you wanted to do that.
Well, I will definitely.
It keeps him off the street.
I think everybody's off the street right now.
Not me.
That was one time.
I'm essential.
And I have pictures.
If you're spending your time out on the street, you're doing it wrong, I think.
I install security cameras on the street corners.
I make sure people get their elevators fixed, including hospitals and nursing homes.
So, yeah, I think being that we haven't quite got moving on some of that stuff yet, I hesitate to go to my team with anything new right now until we get some of those basic first things tried out and tested. But it's good to know that the resources are there and that people have more ideas. So after we've got the basics figured out, I can definitely reach out for help doing bigger and better things.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Oh, just a quick question: is there a May meeting or no?
Is what?
Is there a May meeting?
Yes, I was remembering again. I tend to remember and then forget, and then remember and forget. But I will get out the information about that tonight. Because yes,
And let's
it
make
should have been out.
and make sure we get that posted onto the ATC page. I know you post them. I just can't remember off the top of my head because I've got 8 conversations going in addition to this. So
yeah, I generally do put that out there, and I put it on the calendar and whatnot as well. Also, just side note, while I have the floor, I went through my email. It looks like the original order for the leg fund was not ever sent out to the board, so I don't have it. So there's a lot of discussion about the first campaign with Greg and the webpage and all of that other stuff that was set up. But the actual charter documents, no.
So
can't help you there.
I'm not sure that would be on file, but I know in the board notes, I didn't see it. I did a quick scan of them. I can do a deeper scan later. There's not a charter, but there is details in the notes of one of the board meetings in the first 2 years. One of the board meetings in the first 2 years where we were recording. I distinctly remember that there is details about it in there.
When it was being discussed.
Yeah.
I imagine that printouts were brought to the meeting and the digital version was never emailed out.
Yeah.
But if there's stuff in the board notes, that helps.
Yeah, at this point, that would I feel that that's, with everything being lost, that's something we should definitely redraft up something as a formal document to keep on file, and then also run that by Charles again, because tax laws change every few years.
Surprised that never had to be filed anywhere or anything like that with the bank account or something, but
actually you wouldn't run it past him for tax laws. You would run it past our tax accountant, not the attorney.
I meant more from the I meant more as a broad legal standing on things to make sure as many facets as we can get this crossed over, just to make sure we are still not breaking any rules as we were not in the past, is going to be the best.
I know that Charlie was consulted to begin with just to make sure that it was legal for us to actually do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But anyway, just wanted to let you guys know that I don't have those documents, which means as far as I'm aware, they are not in the email archive.
I wonder if Charlie has them in his records.
No, I doubt it.
I've sent him.
Because I don't think we were really using Charlie then. We would have used Map.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Did you say MAT or MAP?
Charlie is part of MAP.
MAP for nonprofits, yeah, which is
Just
now
making sure.
Propel, I think, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Charlie was consulted on that, but I guess I'm not 100%.
But I don't think individually, not as an individual person.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So finance. Everybody should have seen the financials. Sorry, Ashley and John, you did not. They really should not have come as any surprise to anybody. Unless maybe you were surprised by the $3,000 income from the Millennium, which was the deposit we had made for staff dinner the last couple of years that they refunded us. So I don't know that there's much that we can say about them, much more money going out. Currently, the bank account does sit at $232,656.81. There's still quite a few checks that haven't come through being cashed yet. So, and there's still a couple of weeks for people to request refunds for Detour.
And I believe Ashley, you sent out another email about that recently? No. Registration did.
Dude,
Registration did.
Hang on, dude.
Sorry.
Okay, so yesterday, a mass email went out for the people to be reminded that they had until June 1st to request their refund or to complete their donation. Things had been pretty slow in that area, and I really thought things had calmed down, but once that email went out, it kind of skyrocketed, and there's about another 150 in the last 12 hours that have come in requesting refunds. So I expect that this next week will be not obviously as high as it was in the very beginning when we first started, but a significant jump. I'm hoping that when all is said and done, we'll still end up with our account balance at around the $200,000 level, which would be fairly on par with where I would have expected us to be at the end of the convention cycle and after charitable giving had been done. So, I mean, that's clearly my best hope at this point. I haven't heard from Olivia. I don't know, Troy, if you have any information from her about whether or not any of the flights haven't been refunded at all, or if any of the guests are returning their original payments. So I'm not really expecting.
Double check. I think a number of them we were hoping, and I think of most of the ones that we pulled, we're intending to come back in 2021. And I'll check back in. There was at least.
There's two that haven't been cashed, so I'm not sure if I can write them off or if they're just.
Yeah, at the point that we were at, she was doing quite some haggling with the airlines, as many of them were not as ready to give immediate refunds as opposed to credits.
Okay.
So I will double check with her and see where we stand on that.
I'll take credits too. I guess that's
Right.
that's better than nothing. Okay. Outside of that, the tax forms, I finally got IT to get them out on the website. So everything should be up to date on the ATC website regarding the 990 and the state filing forms. Everything through the fiscal year ending 19. Okay, I think that's it. Were there questions on the finances or on the reports that you guys saw?
No.
Okay.
I have a quick question, Kim. Did you say 2019 is supposed to be on the website?
Yep, it's listed as 2018 because that's the year that it starts.
Yep, that's right, because you September. Got it.
Yep, always file in the year that you begin. So, and I did check, John. John told me he put them out there, and I did check that it was there, so. Everything should be good for Tristan if he needs any more numbers. All right. So that brings us, it is 10 minutes to 9. Normally we would take a break at this point, but unless everybody needs to, and unless, or you can just sneak away like I did and use your restroom, just leave your camera blank for a minute. I just like to power through unless you really.
I do need a bathroom break, as the next two things do involve me, so I will be back in just a minute.
All right.
I guess I will do the same. Thank you.
Okay.
That includes me.
Of course, Troy's not going to hear this until he gets back, but
Aw, puppy.
fluffy doggies.
Puppies.
I'll bombard him as soon as he puts his headphones on.
I don't wear headphones.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think either Troy nor I wear headphones, so we just stream at the computer.
Yeah, I'd have to be.
It's the gamer in me. I think that everybody's wearing headphones to a certain extent, so. Your dogs are amazing.
I wish I could take credit for them. They're my daughters, but I drove and picked them up and.
Bottom.
That's
No, she bought them. I just had to go and pick one of them up.
Well, it's sort of yours by proxy. I mean, it's your daughter's dogs, so your daughter.
The property carries over.
Your grand dogs.
Yeah, that's what she's gotten to calling them, and yeah, I'm sure I feel about that. I guess if I have to be grand anything, I'd rather be grand dogs than. I can let them outside and pick up after them. I don't have to change diapers.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we see a kitty in Christina's camera.
It looks like we're
Yeah.
from a shell. So.
Okay, it looks like. Oh no, wait, we're waiting on Michelle. Never mind.
Shell.
Okay.
And I had to send John a note. I was like, I love the ominous fingers every now and then.
Oh, there she is.
You're welcome.
Actually, like one of the few. I mean, there are a few decent Jim Carrey movies. When it was like, was it Bruce Almighty?
Alrighty. Looks like we have everybody, so let us power through. Up next is Tristan's proposal for recording the board meetings.
So I've been working with John on this. Which one is the right one? That is not the right one. That is the right one. Is everybody able to see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I got like 5 windows open. Let me rearrange things. Too small? Okay. Let me.
It really bothers me when
zoom,
people
zoom,
don't use
zoom.
the ink the right way.
Isn't it supposed to be?
It's Anime Twin Cities Inc. or ATC.
Oh, I thought it was so just ATC or Anime Twin Cities Inc.
Correct. And technically, you should, if you're going to use ATC, you have to use Anime Twin Cities Inc. parentheses ATC, so that in the future you know that that's what ATC is.
So is that the correct?
Just for like the
usage of it?
first time.
Just the first time, correct?
Yes, but that how I just adjusted it there. That is the correct usage of
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
but you
if
know
you're-
they have a comma in there.
You just have to put
Yes,
ATC
cross
in
out the
parentheses
comma.
after that. So after the ink, you have to put in parentheses ATC.
No, leave the comma. There you go. Put the comma back in.
Okay, I'll have to adjust a few
And
other
remember
documents.
to take the ink out.
Mhm.
Here.
On
Or-
line 2. Line.
Going
yeah.
forward. There you go.
Correct.
There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna
In
have
the
to do
period.
that in a few different spots then, because I adjusted that at some other
The
point.
period.
Okay, so this was worked on by between John and I. I know we've done this a couple of times, but so what we have here is a proposal to record and place the board meetings online for people to view. Number one, we propose that all public portions of future Anime Twin Cities Inc. board meetings be recorded. These recordings are uploaded to a publicly available site of the board's choosing for access by any persons that wish to hear them. These recordings would be edited by a chosen member or members of ATC to remove private information such as personal phone numbers, addresses, things like that that are private information, and that they would be publicly uploaded to a secured site to be available 1 week after viewing. That gives those people that week to reach out to us if they would like to be removed, or if there's certain information that they would prefer not to have presented. We propose that that all future ATC board meetings be recorded with our own equipment. We do have that on site. That this video be stored in a secure fashion and location so that the ATC board and the general public have access to them. And so far, we've been uploading these videos to YouTube, and we could continue to do that. We do have a NAS that we would keep that we can keep a backup of these videos on. That this video then be edited by chosen members of ATC to remove certain private information to be chosen by the board. And I don't mean that we would tell people that we would not, but I mean the list would be of default things would be chosen by the board. This video would then be posted to any and or all of our various social media sites that would allow such content. They don't need to be hosted there, but we can post them on YouTube, and the link could then be shared to those other sites. This video is to be posted no later than 1 week from the time of the meeting. A list of specific information to remove from all videos should be decided upon by ATC board prior to approval of this proposal. Additional items may be excluded at the request of those present. Should be present at the meeting. I believe this list should include, but not be limited to, any non-public portions of board meetings such as closed sessions, personal information such as address, financials, and other information of private individuals discussed during the meetings. I did specify private because we do deal with organizations. I'm going to choose GPS for an example because they are a 501c and their financials are public. So unless specifically requested, we would not necessarily need to remove that because that is public information. Anything specifically requested by any person present to not have the information be public. What is to be recorded is the board members. So in that situation, posting or having the recording devices posted facing towards the board members, specifically not at the audience. Any non-board member or attendant is not required to be on video. However, all audio will be recorded during the meeting. Signage will be posted at the entrance to the meeting room, notifying people of the recording. In the final video to be presented, we request that the Anime Twin Cities logo, current and future, as information splash pages, to be presented prior and after the video. In the ending credits, information will be presented for all board members as well as their position and contact email. And below we have a list of other things. Let me zoom out just a little bit so we can get most of that on a single page. A list of reasons why I know I and a few others have felt that this would be a good idea. We've got a bunch of advertising sites or social media sites we can advertise to get this out there, make people more aware of what's going on, get the information out there. We have people that can't physically make it to the meetings. We have people that, whether they be disabled, I know in Detour, I know of at least a handful of people that live in different states that are not going to come to the meetings, but may want to be involved in the organization. There's a number of things that could benefit it, that could benefit from it, though. Again, this is our proposal. It's a rough draft that we came up with. If anybody's got comments or concerns about anything, things they feel that could be adjusted, please let us know so we can work on this.
I've got I guess one comment on this proposal. I do wonder why video would be necessary. I mean, shit, just from a storage standpoint, or even just ease of use, I would think that audio, since the audio of the meeting is really what's important, anything that's documents would be provided alongside the audio recording. I feel like that would probably be much easier, much less load on a server. I understand we could just upload it all to YouTube, but it just seems unnecessary to use up that much space for a board meeting when the audio is really what matters. So that would be, I guess, my concern. I thought there at the very bottom of your document there was a point that was supposed to kind of suggest why video is a good option, but I couldn't read it. It was at the bottom of the document. So but yeah, that'd be my concern. It's just, what's the point of video when the audio is really what people need, at least from the board meeting standpoint.
as a counterpoint to that, I mean, we as a board, we are the face of this organization. You know, we do have a responsibility to make ourselves known to our constituents. I'm not sure what the right word that would be there, but we do have a responsibility to make ourselves not only accessible but known who we are, and so for them to know that who we are, so they can reach out to us if they have questions or concerns about things. It's that in and of itself is not necessarily a reason that we have to, but that would be a reason so that they could see who is speaking and put a face to the name or to the words. Troy, you had your hand up?
I think similar to that, I don't dispute what Tony's saying. I think we have an obligation. We have an obligation to these positions. If you were on your PTA, your school board, etc. I'm old enough to remember my city council meeting minutes being on public access cable. I think there's a level of engagement as well that it's going to be easier, I think, for people to engage and probably stay a little bit more of a vested interest online, or at least it would be for me with the visuals versus just the audio. I know we did the audio 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know what we ever did with it or where we ever put it, that sort of thing. And then backing a little bit of what Tristan's saying is that, they're the faces of the organization. I think we owe it to our membership to have as many people be able to attend these meetings in as many ways with as many similarities as walking into GPS. And by that, I think that could potentially help address knowledge issues, transparency issues, and more people being interested. Again, I'm guessing, but I think those are some positives. And I know that it's a challenge to take something from what we have been doing to what we're looking at doing and trying to make sure it's the right thing. But I guess that's just my opinion of it. I think it's for the betterment of our members. It makes everything, including us as individuals, more accessible.
I just want to add to all that as well. Me being the real outgoing person I am, I can easily say I don't have a problem with the camera. What I would say towards it is the fact that many of us are animated people. Our visual actions as well as our words, sometimes our visual actions speak louder than our words. So as we're speaking, conversing, and interacting with each other, that can speak volumes with the words that we're saying. So sometimes what a person hears to what a person hears and sees could be two different things. So having that audio and visual experience can drastically change the course of how a meeting looks compared to how it sounds. My 2 cents.
Do we have any other feedback?
I'm hearing no sound feedback on my end.
Checking the YouTube chat, I got distracted for a minute with that. While the audio might be more important, I think the video is more important. It helps us bring the organization and its people alive. That's the one response so far we got on the subject in the YouTube chat.
So one thing I would like to just kind of add to my specific statement there was not necessarily to take away from, I mean, obviously right now we're streaming this on YouTube. That would be, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with if we wanted to begin, once we can meet in person again, streaming our meetings at GPS on YouTube. I was more looking at an archival standpoint, rather than like people attending the meeting currently online. That's perfectly fine. Stream it, all that. But from an archival standpoint,
yeah,
that's where I'm looking at audio as being the preferred method. But I mean, whatever. That's fine if you want to do it that way. I'm not against the video being there aside from the standpoint of just the archivalness of, audio being the important part to save. Um, but I get where you guys are coming from, and that totally makes sense. So yeah, no, I understand that, and I'm on board with that.
Okay.
That was actually. Sorry, give me.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna read a comment here. Just a usual comment: if board members can be seen in person for meetings, they can be seen on video. It also provides important cues and clarity for people. I do actually agree with you, Tony, on the storage standpoint. I'll use the detour meetings for an example since I do record those. The 30-minute meetings we're walking out of there, those are 80, 90 gigs. When we're walking out of there with the longer meetings, budgetary stuff like that, where we're getting up over an hour, I'm 100 to 150 gigs, and that's before I don't do much tweaking to them. I just adjust colors so it looks realistic and brighter, and turn the audio up so it's easier to hear and understand people. I don't do much to them as far
Can
as
you compress that any more than that? I mean, the quality doesn't have to be
yeah, I
A
could.
plus.
As far as storage, yeah, I could probably compress it, zip it, do something to it to shrink that down for the long-term storage.
Okay.
But yeah, audio versus video, yeah, we're for an hour and a half meeting, we're looking at maybe a gig. I would guess. I've not done that yet, but audio files are not that huge when they're that long. I mean, so yeah.
So what is your current storage situation for the videos that you do for the detour meeting?
I have a NAS down here that I have connected at all times to the internet. I've provided the information for that. I only have a 10 meg or a 10 meg, yeah, 10 meg upload. So accessing them can be a little slow. That's why I load them onto YouTube, so it's easier to actually view them. But I can make the the data accessible, not editable, just because I'm reserving that to certain administration. But I have I believe it's a 13 terabyte NAS sitting down here. I got I think once I finish loading a couple of them on there, because I left a couple hard drives at GPS I got to swing down and get, but I think I'd be somewhere between 1 and 2 terabytes with all of the meetings from the last 2 years.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't technically savvy, what is a NAS?
A NAS is a network addressable storage. In this case, it sits down here. I have it sitting down here in my living room because getting internet for it to be accessible from our storage locker or from GPS would be a financial hurdle. That would be very expensive, as well as, for an example, 150 gig video file that I'm trying to upload directly from a hard drive to that NAS takes in excess of an hour. If I were to do that over the internet remotely, I could start that now, and by Thursday it should be done. So having that immediately accessible for the loading and unloading of the data is why I physically have it. But again, it is accessible over the internet if that link has been provided. That's not something I'm going to throw out there to the general public. If members of the board wish to have access to it for viewing, that would be a discussion. But otherwise, right now, it's only accessible to those who have a need for that data, and they only have access to that data that they would need to have access to.
So by keeping the NAS your physical residence, does that incur any additional expense on your part?
No, it does. It does not incur any additional expense on me. I have my internet. It does not take. I don't have a. I have my cable provider does not impose any data restrictions or limitations on bandwidth or quantity used per month. So I have unlimited access to it. The only limitation that could possibly be imposed were if people wanted to quickly download things from their home without taking possession of it. They would either have to wait a significant amount of time, or I would have to upgrade my services to have a faster rate that they could download from. That is the only, other than that, the only possible expense with this that could be incurred would be maintenance of the device. So, if a hard drive, depending on how long we chose to keep these archived, I guess, we can physically remove the full drives and insert a empty drive with storage with drive sizes available. I could easily triple the storage on this thing. It would not be cheap, but I could easily triple the storage on it. Even this 13 terabytes that's in it, with uploading all of the staff meetings to it and the board meetings, 3 to 5 years, depending on the length of the recordings. I would say 3 to 5 years. Before we have to consider upgrading storage or replacing storage.
Okay. Is the NAS personally owned by you, or is it owned by ATC?
It is ATC property.
What's the backup plan for the NAS?
As far as like storage backup or physical backup?
As in, the NAS went corrupt.
At the moment, I do not have one because so far we have not. I don't want to say we have not needed one, but that has not been a primary concern as of yet.
So, like, are the meetings uploaded to YouTube?
Yes.
So I would say the NAS is the backup. If something happens with YouTube servers or vice versa.
That is not a entirely inaccurate statement.
I don't think we need to talk about the technology behind this anymore.
Very well. Do we have any other additional feedback about this proposal?
One question I have, I know it had been talked about at one time and it went through a couple of different staff. Did we ever at a board level decide on a policy governing storage and use of ATC owned property at individual residences?
I don't believe we have.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm coming at it from a point of we should have one. I believe this is, I'm not a voting member, but I believe this is an appropriate instance of that.
Correct. And that's
historically we had sort of frowned upon it based on, if it was a matter of convenience or somebody using it for non-ATC related purposes, then we frowned upon it. Many staffers, members' homes have become temporary storages for equipments. And I guess, well, I don't believe we've had any real, instances come up in recent years. Should the old hit by the bus, we should know where our equipment is and why and whom has authorization to have it. And just as forgive me, Tristan, but just in this instance, I was aware, I don't know how many other people were, you get hit by a bus tomorrow, how many people currently sitting on the board knew that we had a NAS and it was where it was? So I would at least like to recommend sort of on the back end of that, if we could look at that as we move forward through the year, especially, again, no shot at you, Tristan, but especially with the dollar value of what you have, just that sort of thing.
Additionally, it is not insured while it's sitting at Tristan's house.
That's
that was what.
Yeah.
I thought
With
the
his
policy
own
was
home
don't do
insurance.
that.
Yeah, the NAS will be covered under his own personal homeowner's insurance.
I thought detour policy was basically don't store things at your own residence.
Well,
What I tell people.
I mean, it becomes the
This is an exception, though.
Is it not, and feel free to
What
correct me,
isn't?
is it not actually all ATC equipment? That's my understanding.
Technically, yes. Every single thing we own, my understanding is that it is
Yeah.
all ATC.
Mine too. So that's why I'm suggesting we should come up with a policy for allowances and checks and balances, just to, be safe, and so we know who has what and where.
'Cause
And
I'll say in the case of this, I mean, I would have no problem leaving it at the storage unit or anything, and then just dropping by every now and then to upload things. It's just with this, it's basically a CD on a spindle. Think Walkman. You shake it real hard enough, and you're gonna lose everything. And
well,
that's
personally, I'm not opposed, just as long as, like I said, if we have a policy dictating and the board is aware that you have it and they've approved that you have it.
Oh no, I was just
then-
saying that in a version to bringing it out
Sure.
once or twice a month to repeatedly, picking it up, moving it.
Right.
Eventually, something's going to go wrong with it, and it's
Exactly.
going to be
No,
far
I
more
understand.
expensive to replace it.
You're right.
I'm a lot more worried about Tristan's equipment than the stack of towels in a laundry basket that happened to end up at my house after.
This was not approved.
Fine, I will deliver them to your house. Oh my gosh.
I have enough laundry.
All right, people, I'm getting cranky. It's nighttime.
Yep.
Okay, so
All
I
right,
think
Tristan, are we good on this then? You want to finalize it? What do we do?
At this point, since I did say in it that we do have to agree on the wording of what is to be excluded, at this point, then I feel I would feel comfortable pushing this off to next month so we can discuss over email what should for sure be included on that list, and then we can vote on it next month, once we finalize that list.
All right, excellent. So Christina, you'll put it on for the June for a final vote.
yes.
And we will hear from Tristan. All right, so moving on. Tristan, how you got lots of feedback, it looked like, on your 5-year plan. Where are we at?
Yes, I did. I got a number of people or a number of things. One thing that Olivia did point out is and with her education specifically in this matter, she did say that this section is redundant language or not needed in our vision statement. So that is something we can we would have to review that as a separate item, not as part of the 5-year plan, because that is our statement. But that is something we can discuss at a later time to remove it, because I honestly, thinking about it, we have expanded a little bit beyond specifically anime and manga. We got video games and a number of other music and a number of other things that we are getting involved in now. So I feel that is something that we could definitely address.
Okay.
Really, most of the rest of this and the changes up here was really grammatical. So that's.
And you're gonna fix all the ATC things?
Yes, I will. Now that you have corrected me on those, I will go through and fix those all.
I find that it's a really big sticking point for me.
Nope, it's not necessarily a legally binding document, but I would still prefer to be an accurate document. So I will get that adjusted.
All right.
See, I used it right here.
Finalized next month, or what is the plan?
If everybody's comfortable with this and doesn't really have any revisions after this, then yes, we could finalize it next month. In the additional funding, we did shorten it down to 10,000 instead of 20,000, and I did.
And maybe you could just shoot John and Ashley a copy that they can just look at it so they're aware of what.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And for
Yes.
those,
Over with it, please.
and also for those in the chat, as well as this is, I do keep this on Google Drive. The link is public. People can go in, make suggestions to edit, edit anything that they want. I welcome all the feedback. Another change in the additional funding section is the sentence here. Let me highlight.
I don't think you're on the screen, so I don't know where you're saying here.
Oops.
Yeah, I can see it on YouTube, but I don't know how to see it in.
How's
the
that?
apps.
How's that? That better? I'm sorry.
It's loading. There we go. Okay.
Okay, my mistake. Sorry.
That's where we're at.
So this last section, one of these last sentences here, someone did point out that regarding something about the membership, that we're going to be continuing to assess the membership fee. That price is set by the board. That is dictated by the bylaws that we are collecting that, and that $15 fee, fee for membership is not to be included in part of that 10,000 in additional funding. So even if we do increase in membership to such a point where that number does exceed 10,000, that would not be part of that 10,000 in additional funding. Just as a clarification point to make that. Then Michelle and I did come up with some numbers based off our discussions at the last meeting, and then we had a nice several-hour phone call or chat about things. So the overall financial income, we agreed to cut that in, pretty much cut all the numbers in half. We're looking at a 10-year increase over the 5-year. Obviously, if these goals become so easy to hit that that's not a problem, we are more than welcome to exceed that. But these would be at least a target to hit. A 3-year target of 4%, and then also a 3-year target of having 2 new resources of income or other fiscal assets. And that's in part with the additional funding, so that we're not to encourage us to seek a variety of other what's the word? I can't think of the word.
Income streams.
No, the thing you apply for money.
Grants and loan grants.
Thank you, grants. Grants and other similar things.
I did point out to Tristan during our discussions that grants are normally, for what we would likely be going through, a bit more complicated than, say, our leg fund. When we give people leg funds for a bill.
Oh, absolutely.
We have to come up with more documentation and a plan to most of the organizations we would be applying to. But that's up to us to figure out what we want to do and how we want to go after it.
When I had suggested it a few years ago, one of the things that I found when looking at a number of grants, that it seemed like a number of the types that we would probably fall into were arts related, and there are going to be, at least at the ones that I investigated, there would be provisions in how that money could be spent. Typically it was going to be spent on your event, such as in our case, Anime Detour. And it would have to be in a way that was expanding the offerings of the event, bringing in, I don't know, something cultural or something germane to our organization, not just paying Pepsi. So just cautioning that, as Michelle said, it is a very legal, very more in-depth, deep dive process with theoretically a low chance of success rate. What does not mean that we should not attempt it. We just might some provisions where it perhaps benefits a branch level versus a board level.
Yep, we're going to have to see what we can come up with. It's a goal.
Does anybody here have experience writing grant proposals?
Yes.
No.
I also have contacts to other people who do.
I'd be happy to learn.
Uh-huh. John, just so you know, I also spoke to Gaia about it.
Oh, good call.
And once we get into it, but as I had suggested a few years ago, I think the level of what's going to be needed here, and depending on how many grants we're going to be looking at applying for, they could be scattered all about the calendar, and each have different requirements for which sort of fiscal documents and things like that they would like you to include with your proposal. it may be something where the board needs to, I'm not saying appoint, but might have a specific team working on that, because I really think it's going to be more than, you know, one or two people will probably want to take on for an extended period of time. And like I said, there's probably have to be a calendar built as, you know, which ones they do when and which documents they want and what the submission point is and when the approval denial point is. So that just, you know, there's a lot to go into it.
Agreed, Troy. Agreed. Like I said, I have some experience with
Oh,
it.
yeah. Just didn't want to
And
fall on you.
yeah, it won't be.
Thank God. All right. Any other questions on that first part for the overall income? Chat also, please do feel free to chime in. Like I said, everybody's welcome here. An increase in attendance of Anime Detour of 10% over the 5-year plan. At this point, it's kind of a how you want to count it with vendors and staff and with everybody that was working the convention. We're somewhere between 6,300 and 6,500. So counting that, 1,300 in 5 years? No. Yes. 1,300 5 years? No. 650. 650 in 5 years is, I feel, not an unreasonable number that we could. I mean, we could definitely find ways. The first year specifically being maintaining, at least maintaining, the attendance that we had in 2019. So about that 6,300. I mean, yeah, we're probably going to take a hit, but we can probably find ways to do something about it. A 3-year target of 4%. Oh, I see Troy's hand up.
Just, you know, not even necessarily a point of contention, but I realize that best/worst case scenario is that we would maintain those 2019 numbers. As we've remarked a number of times in this board meeting, these are uncertain times. You know, we don't have, first of all, again, we still don't, we're not known where we will be in 2021, or what sort of convention planning cycle we will have, whether it starts next month, you know, in November, that sort of thing. So I'm a little, and I'm not even saying skeptical, but I'm, you know, just, you know, questioning of tying us to those 2019 numbers. It might not be something, no matter, you know, whom we bring in, what we do, or that sort of thing. It might, I guess, optimistically, yes. Realistically, there could be, like you said, a dip. So I guess that's just sort of my concern, is putting out there to maintain when there could be a dip this first year. Would, I mean, I'm not opposed to leaving it like it is. I guess my question is there a way for us to, I realize that this is meant to be a long-term, but also living document. Is there a way for us to adjust to theoretical, realistic expectations for 2021 without tying it to 2019 numbers, which I realize acknowledges a very current situation?
So with that, we were just using the 2019 number originally. You know, obviously we were going to use the 2020 numbers, but we were just using the 2019 numbers as this is our last dot on the scale of things. This is our last marker. Like you said, this is a living document. It gives us, the point is to give us a goal to hit. If we don't hit that goal, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's not something to start firing people over. If we don't hit the goal, we sit down and we go, okay, why didn't we make it, and what can we do about it?
That makes sense.
Troy, here's the truth. Your income bonus is tied directly. Your personal income bonus is tied directly to whether or not you make those numbers.
No, I just, as long as there's the understanding, like I said, I mean, we will obviously
it's a goal.
Everything that we can to meet and exceed that. You know, that is our goal every year. Just as long, you know, as long as we're just throwing out that there's the understanding that, you know, could be affected by, you know, when we're able to start planning, if we're able to start planning. But outside of that, I agree. I don't have a problem with the numbers. I mean, break even is our goal, was our least acceptable goal, I think I would say, every year. We would like to, always have appropriate growth that, the hotel and our staff can manage. But thank you.
Here's a thing for you, Troy. I think that this document, living, etc., which is a set of goals, if you're having trouble and you think of something the board should be doing to help you, you can point to this document and said, you've signed this saying you're going to help us. It's our goal to do this thing. And I think we need to do X so that I can make this goal that's been set by the board.
And, I appreciate that. And I think you guys do hit on that, 2 bullet points down where you mentioned the advertising. That would probably be the biggest thing that helps the branches and in particular Anime Detour to spike that attendance. But otherwise, I just wanted to throw that out there as a asterisk. But otherwise, I think it, like you said, and I agree, I think it's a good living document.
Okay.
Thank you for you guys for working on it.
Anything else on the detour specific bullet points on that? I see hands up.
No,
I don't know if it's just stretching or not. Okay.
I think so.
This is one that these two were ones that John specifically can be adjusted. Okay, somebody commented if this is a living document, it can be adjusted and updated as needed based on future outcomes and impacts from current circumstances. Yeah, I think we're all pretty much in agreement on that one. So the next 2 bullet points were on advertising. The organization shall increase advertising and seek to increase staff counts of all coordinators each year, evaluating and working out a plan to reach this each year to the best effect at the time. The board shall create a list of metrics to be used to measure the advertising and possible effectiveness to properly adjust the annual budget. I should have wrote the annual budget for advertising. Correct. That was one thing that John brought up is, while we had it in there, there was really no way to monitor the metrics on that. It's just kind of throw it at the wall and see if it sticks kind of thing. Anybody got any questions or thoughts on that? Nope. Okay. Charitable giving shall maintain a list of organizations and groups in line with the vision and mission statements of ATC, as well as seek to include new and growing groups each year with the goal of diversifying our giving and help grow the community. And I think this can also kind of be pointed at towards what we were talking about earlier with the leg fund, possible advertising that that could be considered something as an example that we could do for the charitable giving. Do you have anybody? Okay. ATC shall increase their community outreach and interaction opportunities through various forms, each year setting a goal based on factors in the organization and events in the community. This goal should be no lower than 3 free of charge events. Each event shall have at minimum 1 board member present during the event. Examples could include education events, informative or ask me anything type events, where we can better and in more detail inform the community and maintain our transparency. Events such as March of Dimes or other charity events where we can support and help others. This here, that Kevin had, I left that comment in there just because so I wouldn't forget it or the wording of it. In regards to that, Kevin, having a board member there, it's not to say that the event can't happen if there is no board member or that nothing necessarily negative. It was more of a trying to take into account Heather's statements that we a lot of us make reviews on SOS, but I mean I will personally say I while I was there at the Photos for Santa, I did stop over a couple of times, but in my time as a board member, that's I think one of the only SOS events that I have ever attended.
And that was not actually an SOS event. That was a charity event.
I thought it was my mistake.
I get what you're getting at with this, but I think that Kevin also has a legitimate point regarding the wording.
Okay.
I mean, it kind of sounds like the board is sending a supervisor also in a way, which I know isn't the intent of the language. So, I mean, maybe if we could rephrase that to something more like, the board shall make an effort to,
have a
send a representative or something like that, like to put that responsibility on the board rather than having it sound like, I mean, because you could imply that the coordinator is responsible to arrange that presence, or that the board is required to be present in order to do anything. I'm having a hard time coming up specifically with language. Maybe Troy's got a better idea since he's got his hand up, but just I think those are valid points.
Yeah, you hit on the exact same thing that I was gonna say is, changing something like, preferably, but also I think you hit on a stronger point of making sure that it's taken away from whatever phrasing that it's not something that the coordinator has to coordinate, or like Kevin's comment, it's not something to supervise or something like that. I like kind of what Heather said, that the board will make every effort to have a board member there. So anything kind of fitting those parameters. But yeah, just giving back up to I think Heather and Kevin are on the right stance, that we want board members to come, but we don't want it to seem like it's in some sort of supervisory overseeing capacity.
So
I like this phrasing that Tristan has put in. It's at least better. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Better than it was for sure.
Okay.
I like it. I like it.
How about if you remove the word present and replace it with available? That makes it sound like we're making ourselves available, rather than we are being there in any sort of supervisory. We're there.
Or standing like a statue in the corner somewhere.
I've done that. I also sold
sense.
popcorn for several hours at one.
Right. I was
an
hoping
elf.
you guys coming would be that you would also, come and participate in the event, not
Yeah.
just, to be there and stare at it.
No,
Santa
Lord had to
was-
stand in the corner and stare judgingly.
No, that's definitely better.
So I think if we have any more like minor details to go over, I think this could probably be done via email
yeah,
off of this
agreed.
meeting.
yeah, I would not have a problem with that.
Please.
And then key performance indicators, that was just more grammatical at the end. So unless anybody has any other questions, concerns, comments about anything, I don't see anybody in the chat, my emails, or anything about this. So I think that about covers it. Okay. Stop sharing. Alrighty.
So we're hoping then that we can close this out next month, Tristan?
Yeah, like Christina said, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, we can work on the stuff. We could even vote over email and then just ratify and record the vote at the next meeting.
All right, just look at all that voting you and that Ashley and John get to do already.
Yay!
All right.
Can't wait to be free.
Oh, God.
All right. Then the last item on the agenda is needing to reassign the existing projects. I think that we will wait to do that though, because I don't really know what they are right now.
Okay, it's if you just like look down, there's just where I put question marks.
Oh, that's okay.
I don't know if we
Sure.
need to assign them or not, but we're supposed to talk about that memberships cost thing in June,
Yes.
and I don't know who wants to own that.
Oh, because it was probably under president, maybe?
Yes, yeah, it was under John
Yeah.
specifically, so I don't think it has to be president. It was just something that he took on.
Yeah, he had taken it
So-
on.
All right, well, I'm not really sure. I don't really know much about it, I guess.
Toss it at me since I was working on it with him.
Okay.
I know some of it as well. So Tristan, if you want a hand with it, I don't think I'm comfortable enough to take it, but I can help out with it.
Yeah, that's
If
fine.
you want to do
Okay.
that?
Yep, perfect, totally.
I'll put you both on it. Tristan / Ashley.
All right, excellent. So then we'll have that for June. Also in June, we will go over the board projects and reassign what might be out there. I'll see if I can go back through the meeting notes and see if I can find a list. I thought we had a list somewhere. I'm not really sure where. Over the years that we had a whole bunch of projects that were going on that were reassigned, scrapped. I'm not really sure, but I just know there's a big long list somewhere.
I know that last year, about shortly after this time, as soon as John took over, he ran through and organized a bunch of them and assigned them. So it should be in the notes in the last 12 months.
I will try to dig that stuff up and get that prepared, and hopefully we'll have a new president in June, so that then maybe I can work with them on those projects for the June meeting. And also then in June, we have the coordinator reviews. So as a reminder, this is all of the board members' responsibility to write a review of your coordinators, who are Troy, Eric, Heather and Heather. And then I guess in the interim, we'll still review the charities department and the media relations department, just to ensure that we review them, I guess, in some way, not necessarily the people. We don't want to review Michelle as 2 month interim, or Jay, I guess we could review him. But maybe just the positions.
Can I make a suggestion?
No.
As long as Jay is working social media right now, and we're going to make the big announcement about John Conagus stepping down, might we also perhaps once again remind people that there's a charities head and a social media head? I don't mind doing the work interim, but officially I'm not supposed. Hello?
Did we all get disconnected?
No,
Wow.
mine.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Every
That was weird.
everything went
See,
down there.
that's what I get for speaking up.
You broke it, Michelle.
All right.
I did.
I wonder
Is
if
the-
we like
is-
hit our time limit or something.
No,
WebEx shouldn't have one.
Yeah, WebEx, even though it's the free version, WebEx actually just updated it a few days ago to no longer have a time limit for now
Okay.
Nice.
on it.
But
Still waiting for
Mm,
video, by the way.
we lost Kim
mhm.
and John.
There's John coming.
John's
in.
coming.
There we go.
John, Kevin, Michelle.
Give
We're
Kim
still
a minute,
missing Kim.
maybe. Hopefully
Missing
she'll be
2
back
people.
in a moment.
And it looks like Troy's got a question.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were done with, I think we looped out on you mid-sentence.
Yeah.
We did.
No, basically all I was going to say is if the social media can toss up
There's
the
Kim.
fact that those positions are available.
So,
Welcome back, Kim.
It just went blank. I'm like, where'd everybody go?
Yeah,
We all died,
kicked-
don't
it
worry.
Kicked, it
And there's
kicked
Tony.
everybody out. It exploded.
Eric.
Yeah.
Oh,
Eric's
Eric's there. It's all his
Yeah.
fault. Blame him.
I do,
Yeah.
Michelle, that we should promote those. Also, we have the open community position, which I know Eric's been the only one that's applied so far. So I
Yep.
think we need to get ahead on getting all of those positions out, and remember to get the people to start applying and start closing them, or doing what we need to do.
Sure.
Troy, you got your hand up?
a few questions. Are we waiting on position descriptions for those open coordinators positions to make it easier for people to apply for?
That's,
Or-
that's kind
no,
of what
I
we
just-
were waiting on, but
Okay.
at this point, I'm just gonna shoot the email. I'll combine it in one email tomorrow. I'm not sending an email tonight anymore. It is too late.
Oh, shoot.
For the ones that we have interims for, is that something that, not saying, do we have to vote to have somebody acting as the interim coordinator and then kind of do like we were doing with Eric's position, open that position, formally apply, and then formally take it on
I
and
believe that has what we have been doing.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if we had done that with the 2 interim people, so I just, as a matter of record, get them
I
on.
think every time we went to actually have a chance to even tell people at one of the meetings, either somebody came sick or the entire world got sick.
Well, there's that. No, so it wasn't to like, just making sure we were, if there was a thing that we needed to do to make it official, to make sure that we were doing it, and then maybe as part of a suggestion as part of the email that Christina was looking at sending out, letting people know that Michelle is our interim person and contact you, that Jay is our interim person, so that anybody who
No,
wants
yeah,
to
that's
get-
great. That's a good idea. At least in the email, say who are the interims and
So people know who to contact and that the positions aren't vacant. They're being held down by folks that may or may not apply for it permanently, but at least they know who to contact.
and besides that, all of us need staff.
Right.
True.
Okay, so we'll do that. Let us try to have our reviews to Christina by June 2nd, so that she can then put them together and maybe do we email them out prior to the board meeting in the past?
The positions?
Reviews?
I'm sorry, the what?
The reviews, the coordinator reviews.
It was at the very least that same day, I thought, or maybe the day before, but I thought it was maybe that same day.
Saw them ahead of time, or
We did email them ahead of time.
Yeah, not by much. It wasn't, I thought it was the same day, but I could be wrong.
I think it was we tried to have it at least well in advance so that we could get them into, I don't know, something within a reasonable time.
So we had them to Christina by, I guess, by the end of the month, and Christina could put them together, and she emailed them out to the board on the 3rd. That would give the coordinators a couple of days to look them over and be prepared for the reviews on the 9th. Does that seem fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If those of you that are leaving can get them in, so that the guys aren't coming in fresh with 1 month, that would be appreciated.
I knew you were going to say something.
We always have a thing in the past too where we've always questioned whether or not, obviously Jay and Kevin can review, but do we make it post to the staff so that if they want to send in a review?
I know we've
I
had that
thought they were
discussion
always able
before.
to.
Yeah.
John did, but I don't think Andy did, so it's.
I would not have a problem doing that.
Absolutely allowed to review. I mean, it is in the bylaws that the board reviews, but
Right. In the past, it's been offered out to staff at large that if they wanted to submit comments, to send them to one of the board members to be relayed in. I always thought that was kind of weird, but that was how it was done before, that you had to send your comments to a board member and then they would submit them as part of the pile.
Yeah, I think that was just for anonymousness. In
I
case
suppose.
people weren't comfortable, for instance, somebody telling Troy how great of a job he's doing.
all right.
So
So I guess I can send out that email to the staff.
I mean, you could potentially offer, that people can send their comments directly to the secretary, but
Mhm.
if they wanted to, they, could
Yeah.
go to a board member instead.
I think, yeah, I will
That
give
seems fair.
I will give them that offer. I really don't want to get my email inundated. With all of the refunds I have processing right now, I'm a little backlogged, so I would prefer not to inundate
Well,
my email more.
Yeah. And I mean, I could email people about this. I think but I don't want to do it like right after the other email.
Right.
Like I want to space it out because people are just gonna not read them. So
yeah.
Okay, so how about this, Christina? How about maybe this weekend to send an email to the staff about the reviews?
okay,
Would that give it? I mean, that gives like 3 days between emails. You think
Yeah.
that's fair enough?
Mhm.
Saturday or Sunday, if you want to send one to the all staff saying that it's in June, we'll be doing coordinator reviews. If you would like to review with the coordinators, please feel free to email you with your questions, concerns, comments.
Well, and I
Or-
think one thing that Andy tried to focus on was, I don't know what he called it, but, you know,
Score.
specific feedback versus, you
Yeah.
know, just comments, and things like that, that we might not be able to figure out how to, adjust to.
I mean, this is effectively an annual review, so think of it like you would a job. You know.
Right.
Sure. My annual review just got postponed by 2 months.
Oh, and then in
At
that,
least I still have a job.
who the coordinators are and who the interim people are, and that should
hmm
we cover all of that, and then that we are looking for positions. So
Yeah. As a reminder to everybody on the note of these, for board members, the two new ones are exempt, but for the remaining board members, these aren't optional.
I actually already have one written.
That's great. That's great. I get a little frustrated when, like, the last 2 years I get I see 2 people write reviews, and then last year there was 3 out of 5 or 6. So it gets a little frustrating when people don't do it. So please do remember to do the reviews. It's not like we haven't had months to do them.
I would ask that when we do receive the feedback, that it's at least grouped so that we know which are board member comments and which are general comments.
I think that's a good
Minor thing.
No, I don't think that's minor, Heather. I think that's a good way to break it out.
All right, I would like to see all of it, but just to know which group is which.
Well, and I think, you know, last year we did it in the open, and I think under the previous president, we did it with the board and the coordinators all at once. I don't know if there's thoughts or opinions on one way or the other.
I have no preference either way.
I don't recall, so I don't either.
I know at one time they
seems
tried
like
to make
if
it anonymous, and then it wasn't anonymous, but then it was, but it wasn't. So
It seems like to me, as long as we're welcoming, you know, feedback from everyone, that it might, I don't know, is it better to then take that feedback with the coordinators and cover it that way versus in an open session that is essentially streamed?
I in that consideration, a closed session for the reviews might be better just with the volume of them.
okay, Heather, what?
So couple comments and partly just based on, you know, just to recap for people that might be not aware of how this stuff has worked in the past. So first off, I think that comments from the public should definitely be anonymous. As far as the board members, I could go either way on whether they should be identified or not. I don't care, but we should definitely offer anonymity to the staff in general. And then, so what we have done is the reviews have been sent out to the coordinators ahead of time. And then at the board meeting, the coordinators were given a chance to respond to those comments, which personally, so especially if we are taking comments from the public, I think it would be nice if that was in a meeting so that the coordinators would have a chance to respond to stuff that might have been submitted from outside of the board. And those people might have an opportunity to hear that response. It doesn't take that much time, being that we receive the comments in advance and it's just a response statement essentially, which isn't as long as, you know, reading through the whole thing and line by line item, you know, responding. At least in my opinion, it hasn't seemed to take up too much of the meeting time to do that.
My opinion is I'm working nights, so I wouldn't be able to do it. But if you guys want me to email my responses, I can. But aside from that, I have no preference whether or not we respond or we just take the constructive criticism and run with it.
I
Is
think
this
you don't
Eric
have to
talking?
respond necessarily if you don't want to either. But I think it's important to have that opportunity to respond and to be able to do it in such a way that the people who submitted the comments could hear that if they wanted to.
The only reason why I have no preference here or there is because sometimes those sessions can turn into attack sessions, and we have to make sure that we avoid that at all costs.
Yeah.
Be constructive, and we have to be able to gain something out of it and not bash each other, because that's not what we're here for.
Okay, so I will get that email out this weekend and we can figure out how we want to do it in a meeting later.
Excellent. All right.
And now it's 10 o'clock.
That
Yep.
brings us to the end. Does anybody have anything else? Please say no.
No.
Nope.
All right. I lied. I would like to thank Kevin and Jay for their hard service. Thank you so much over the past 2-4 years, however long you've been on the board. Kevin, I've been with you forever. I'm going to miss you.
I'll still be around. I'll just be on the YouTube side.
Right over there. You live right over there. I'll wave and I'll drink with you. And Jay, I'm sure I'll still hear your voice on Knights Lenarius, so. Don't be
I am so sorry you actually have to hear that.
It's quite entertaining, even though I don't know anything except for riding chocobos.
That's all there really is, let's be honest.
Chicken
Riding the
butts.
Thunder Chicken.
Giant magic ostrich.
I get outed for making cat noises.
Off my heart.
So.
You've been wonderful. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your time. And my claps to you.
Yay.
All right, with that, I will end the stream. Everybody on the stream, you have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
See you later.
All right.